Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 3, Episode 45.5. I am your host, Alejandro, solo right now because, kind of like I mentioned in the last episode, we were not going to record an episode this week because it was Thanksgiving, but in order to not go an entire week without posting anything, instead what I was going to do was I was going to repost through our feed the episode that I recorded with Sebastion Mauldin, the host of the single player experience, that I recorded a month ago-ish, where we did a full discussion about Spider-Man 2. Obviously, if you follow our channel, you already noticed that me and my podcast co-host Paul, we already recorded our own spoiler cast. That was like an hour and 15. And looking back, I wasn't super satisfied at how rushed we had to do that because Paul was caught up for time, so that's why we didn't go as in depth as we did with Jedi Survivor and Final Fantasy 16. And because I knew I was gonna do that with Sebastion, because earlier in the year we also did recaps episodes of the original 2018 Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales, kind of in the lead up to Spider-Man 2. Then eventually now we recorded the Spider-Man 2 full discussion, no holds barred, that went really long. And just to take advantage of that, he gave me the file, and that's what is going to be uploaded here. So starting now, you're going to listen to the episode that will also be over at Sebastian's feed. He gave me his blessing to post that. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy it. Hopefully by now you have finished and platinum Spider-Man 2, and you're going to enjoy how we're basically recapping the whole thing and how initially it felt like it was going to be a more contentious discussion between the two, because Sebastion definitely felt a certain way about that game in a more positive way. I was more critical, but I think you'll see that the more you talk about it, there was more common ground than expected. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week for season 3, episode 46, as we start the winding down process for 2023. So hope you enjoy, and see you on the other side.
Hey everyone, welcome. It is our post-Halloween episode because Halloween's just ended, and it's Thanksgiving season. Do we really have Thanksgiving season, or is it more Christmas season? I don't know. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This is the Single Player Experience, the premier podcast for single player gamers to find out about good single player games to play and get good game recommendations. So, everyone, it is with heavy heart that I must say that this episode is going to go deep into a topic that I fear is going to drive a line of division between me and my guest today, because we might be at war. And the game we are talking about today is none other than Spider-Man 2, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which we and my guest have beaten to completion, platinumed, both of us even. So without further ado, let's get down to business to defeat the Huns. Joining me today is the symbiote killer himself, the platinum, what I want to say 64 platinums and counting,
66
platinums and counting, the platinum hunter, the symbiote killer, the devourer of all exclusives. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is Alejandro Segovia. Alejandro, how you doing today?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome for what's hopefully gonna be a very spicy but well-balanced thought for a game that is I devoured so fast, and I got feelings. So many that I already did over at my own show, my own spoiler cast, and realized, no, I got more to say. So I'm glad to be here to do a follow-up to the fun episodes we did before the release of this game with the first Spider-Man from 2018 and also Miles Morales. So this was not quite long overdue, but I was so excited for this follow-up. So
yeah, man,
happy to be here.
Glad to have you. So let's talk some business before we get to Spider-Man 2, because we got a lot to talk about. I won't, hold the audience too much before we get to our topic of the show, but I do have to ask you a question here. How many platinums have you gotten this year?
I think I've gotten 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Alan Wake, Spider-Man, and
Jedi Survivor.
Oh, no Assassin's Creed Mirage?
That's the other one. Yes. Sorry. Then it's 4. This is 4 of them then. So Alan Wake, Assassin's Creed Mirage, Spider-Man 2, and Jedi Survivor.
Okay. What out of all those four, which do you think was your favorite platinum to get? As far as not necessarily your favorite game, but like you in pursuit of the platinum. What was your favorite
I would
so
say
far?
Alan Wake. The Alan
Oh,
Wake,
okay.
the Alan Wake Platinum was like super satisfying. So,
Oh, that's cool.
mhm.
That's cool. So, I love trophy hunting. I at least love hearing about it. I'm not a super trophy hunter myself,
Mhm.
but like I got I got a question. Do you feel more passionate about hunting trophies or achievements?
I like hunting trophies more specifically because of the platinum trophy as the carrot at the end of the stick. Because with achievements, it's just a number that goes up.
Mhm.
With trophies, it feels like a scrapbook that you're completing in a way.
That makes
And
sense.
that's and that from like the checkmark perspective of trying to like keep track of things that you 100% and more. I feel the trophy system is a little bit more satisfying. Even though like when achievements came out, I was also very big on achievements early on in the 360 era. So I just love the idea of that metagame of being able to like have something that makes you play a game in a very specific way. And it really pisses me off that over at the Nintendo ecosystem that's not a thing.
I was
Because
just about to ask you that.
there's so many, because I see it. I see something like I have Mario Odyssey, I have Breath of the Wild, and even Tears of the Kingdom. So many elements that I can easily see like an achievement system kind of like pushing me into like really pursuing, especially with how dense those games are and how much you can do. Like an achievement system can even push you into trying things that you didn't even think about, but they're so stubborn, they're so stupidly stubborn. I'm not including that it's just sad. But yeah, it's like I love me some trophies ever since all the way since my first platinum trophy with Uncharted 2 Among Thieves in
Oh wow.
2010. So
Well, I was just about to ask you how you felt about the Nintendo situation with their trophies, but since
yeah,
you
it pisses me off because if they had let's just say like I would play that system more outside of its exclusives if they had that, because I also pictured the scenario that them doing the virtual console, like them the Switch Online and bringing all those older games. If they would then like retroactively fit them with like specific trophies, holy crap, I would keep playing them a lot because of my even my nostalgia of playing those games. So
I get what you
that's why I
mean.
mean, yeah, that's why I mean, that's why like my main systems are PlayStation and Xbox because of that. That
What have you
helps.
what have you been playing lately?
So I just finished reviewing both Alan Wake 2 and the campaign for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. You can read both my reviews over at seasongaming.com, and also for purposes of this discussion, you can also go read my review for both Marvel Spider-Man 2 and Super Mario Wonder over at my own website, thecriticalcorner.com, because those were two games that someone else snatched from me over at Season Gaming, but I had enough things to say that I was like, I need to go back to my other website that I used to write in before I joined Season Gaming. So that's been like those have been like my beats over the last few weeks since the last time we recorded. So,
Okay. Okay. So, all right, you've been playing some really good AAA games. I've been playing some indies like Thirsty Suitors and such. Man,
mhm,
it is a good time to be a gamer right now. Like just a gamer. I'm not necessarily
mhm.
talking about the whole industry because that's a
Yeah,
that's a whole another like
yeah,
kind of caboodle. But like the gaming to be a gamer right now is pretty good.
yeah. To be a gamer that consumes and buys games, what a year.
Yeah, for
To
sure.
be a gamer that understands what happens in the industry, this is a bittersweet year
Yeah, for sure.
because like the amazing content we've gotten has like that shadow looming over it of the behind the scenes trials that have been happening. They just keep happening. Just this last week, the Bungie apocalypse. That's why I
Yeah.
like calling it. So it's like it's that hit horror because that's my game. So that hit me home more than the others layups that have been happening. So it's like no one's unsafe this year. No one. it's
It's been rough. It has been rough. But everyone, send your hearts and your prayers and all your well wishes out to all those that have been laid off of their jobs in the gaming industry this year. But regardless of that, we must move on to our topic of the show. That is Marvel Spider-Man 2. We're gonna move on because normally we like to have a little preamble. We like to talk about random stuff before our topic of the show. This is a beefy one though, so we kind of have to
yes. Mhm.
get to the big daddy himself. Marvel Spider-Man 2. Before we begin, how did you like it overall?
I am very conflicted about it because in many ways I think Spider-Man 2 is the sequel I wanted out of it.
Mhm.
So it's like the kind of sequel that yeah, it plays better, looks better. It's a showcase of the system that it's on, in this case the PlayStation 5. And there are enough elements within it in both story and set piece in set pieces that I would say rank high in like some of my favorite moments of this year. But I also feel this is also a sequel that has fallen into the trap of what's been happening with Sony first party into... I feel they like the smell of their own farts when it comes to like, we're the cinematic kings and all that. Let's like overindulge in walking and talking and like including so much story that really shouldn't be there. Like making things more chunky and bloated with unnecessary stuff that really wasn't there before. And also coming in, at least from my perspective, because this has also been a really interesting experience, how this has been a game that the day one patch really was like Russian roulette to many people. There's so many people that had a squeaky clean experience as you expect these games to go, or there's others people that had like a borderline unacceptable, unpolished experience from what you expect from a AAA Sony first party game and Insomniac game in general. That, and then when you mix all of that together, there's so many things that makes this game in its highest of highs probably my favorite of the three games. But also enough issues I have like in the little and the macro that also makes it my least favorite. But balancing it all out, I feel it's equally as good as the first two. But the disappointment that I feel is that I see how it could have easily been the slam dunk. This is the best of the three, because elements of it are. But I feel like all three games complement each other, and it's an interesting way to feel about this one. But overall, I really liked it. You can go read my review. I gave it personally, I gave it a 9 out of 10. But it's more like until certain moments in this game, I had this lower than the other two. But I've scored all three games equally. I gave them all nines. So it's like this one was lower for a little bit until things happen, which we're gonna talk later into that. I was like, yep, it earned its spot. It's like it eventually was like it's a worthy sequel. But it's like, man, it's like if I had not had that especially the issues that I was having in my own personal experience, ooh, this could have been easy, like like best of the three. But I really like the game. It's just, it's not an easy win for me. So
I understand that. I think you know, and I'll have to like get your like minute feedback on like things that worked for you, that didn't work for you, and we can compare and contrast notes there. But like I just on the surface level, I'm like, I love this game. I absolutely love this game. I love being back in this city, this expanded city. As a matter of fact, I love, you know, the new mechanics such as the gliding, which I had my reservations about initially. Like I
fast travel.
The fast travel is amazing. Like I don't think there's a better fast travel system in games today.
Fast travel. Yeah, this is the best fast travel because it's so seamless and such a technical marvel. Thinking about it, like just the snappiness of how quickly it does it, that how did they manage to make it work like that? So.
And then I'm like, I look at traversal. I look at the way and I look at traversal and swing assist, because like you can turn off swing to lower swing assist and then like have everything feel like more realistic, or you can boost that thing up and just be flying through the city. I feel like traversal. This is the best traversal I've ever played.
Yeah, this is easily the best playing of the three. Like if we have to if we have to call it from the gameplay perspective, this is easily the best. It's the one that I enjoy playing the most, just flying around.
I'm also thinking with myself, I'm like, I don't think I can name a game that has better traversal in it, period, at this point. So I'm like, I'm checking off the list here. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I got an argument this might have the best combat of like most games that I played in recent memory. I'm like, I can't think of a game that has better combat off the top of my head.
I mean, in the bottom mashy way, like no other game did combat like this. So.
Nah, I mean, like, so I'm looking at it. I'm like, so this might have an argument for best combat. This might have an argument. This is undisputed best traversal. I'm looking at things like that, and best fast traveling system. I'm like, is this starting to become one of the best open world games I've ever played? And when I was you know, thinking about different things like that, it just came down to story, and I'm a big narrative person. And whereas you and I were texting back and forth, I'm like, you did not like the first two acts as much as act 3 and 4. However, I'm on the opposite side, to where I'm like, I love that setup, and I love act 1 and 2 versus...
and just to kind of clarify, there's a lot of good still in act 1 and act 2. It's just that a lot of my issues with bloat and focus are like more are more highlighted there, and also with the fact that the game to me like reaches a different kind of crescendo like in its later third, that I'm like, why wasn't this the entire game? Especially because I feel like with how much it grows in that later half, what it focuses on in kind of like its middle chunk, I feel even more than the last game felt more like a stalling tactic to what they wanted to do. But I also blame how this game was marketed, kind of like as more to blame to that, because we gotta like remember more the context of how the 2018 game was presented to us, and who ended up being the villain of that game was something that we discovered until we bought the game and we played the game.
Yeah, for sure.
And in this time, they promoted who the focus of Act 3 was from the beginning, that it was very easy to be like, oh yeah, what I'm doing kind of like in the middle section, there's cool action here, like in gameplay, like the gameplay side of things all remain excellent most of the time, but it's like from a story perspective, I'm like, I know what's coming. When is that happening? Like when? It's like, because this character's cool and all, but that character's gonna be much cooler. And lo and behold, he was. So then at the end, so looking back, I'm like, yeah, it's like, that kind of sucks in a way, because I'm like, I knew that was gonna be cool, but then now I know that every time that I now replay this game forward, I always will be looking forward to that third act and feeling like, man, that's gonna be like a trudge getting there, because everything that happens from acts 3 and 4 is just absolutely bananas and insane, and like it just hits the pedal to the metal. That I'm like, man, it's like, that is my favorite story stretch of any of these games, that makes the rest of the game, with the exception of how it starts, very, very beginning, be like, yeah, it's like, we're like stalling here a little bit. There's more I'm feeling the pacing here in a way that I was not feeling with the other with both the 2018 game and Mouse Morning. And even then, we talked about like some of the issues with 2018 was the start and stop nature of, you're playing as the main character, now let's go do some really bad stealth or just like weird puzzles, which they really fixed in this game at least.
Oh yeah, for sure.
From that perspective, it had a very stop and start feeling. But then more like when you really see who the focus is from that middle chunk, at least from the villain side, when you compare it to the first game, that it was a new character, you were learning new stuff about that character. It felt original, and that carried through. Even though we did talk about that, we felt that middle section in the 2018 game focused too much on that one villain. And then when you see how everything else was crammed after you dealt with that villain in the 2018, and we're like, they could have peppered that in like in the middle. At least they did pepper some stuff in the middle of this, but the villain that's centered in the middle, you're like, I feel like I've seen the story before in comics. I know what this character does, and I feel like Insomniac does such a good job most of the time on like twisting characters and adding extra wrinkles, that I feel they did with who Act 3 is focused on, in a way that they didn't do with this middle section. So I feel like the middle section of this game both improved and failed, like what they did in 2018 in a way. But it's made up that the third act gets even crazier than what happens at the end of 2018. So it's a weird balancing act that I can't wait to talk about more, like when we go full spoiler and details.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm like, I love setup. I love cerebral villains, and which is why I'm like, when we looked at Kraven and the way Kraven was presented in that first act, I'm like, I loved it. I absolutely love it. And yeah, it's Venom has never really, even though I've always admired the character, I've never really connected with Venom as a character, because like he's never really presented as a cerebral villain. No,
yeah, Venom is more like a force of nature and just the polar opposite of your character. He's your is your complete opposite. He's your reverse Flash.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. And then it's also like there's never any dynamics. There's never any like big mega rush or payoff. It's always like it's just chaos. It's him and Carnage are always chaos. Chaos and Carnage. And I'm like, I almost love when a villain can make it personal and also make it like to where I'm looking at their plot and I'm like, oh, I like the way this.
But now think about it this way. In why I say like when Insomniac twists is in their way.
Yeah.
It's what I love. They gave a twist to this Venom that adds that connection that's usually never there.
No, for sure not.
Eddie Brock and Venom, that's like so like cookie cutter, and always is just the coolness of like the look of Venom that makes the villain like such a fan favorite. But the little twist, the personal twist that they added, that it's seeded throughout the entire story in very subtle ways. How that pays off in this one when the hulking monster finally emerges adds weight in a way that usually Venom doesn't have. That I dare say this is my favorite interpretation of Venom ever. Ever. Like, when I really think about the cartoon, when I think about the 2000 game that I love, which Venom is hilarious in that game when he becomes your partner, or when I even think of Tougher Grace in Spider-Man 3, such a lame Venom. This Venom, if you're in video from Spider-Man Web of Shadows, the Venom movies, like, he's usually just he looks cool, but it's not that great as a villain. So then when I think about like what they did with Venom and who's behind the Venom suit in this game, when you think about it that way, it has both the weight and the gravitas, because also the voiced by Tony Todd, Candyman, and Zoom from the Flash TV show, also adds that otherworldly terror that elevates Venom, on top of like just how insane everything around him gets, both in the world and in gameplay and the story and the final story moments and set pieces. So that's why, like, unless you think of another one that I can think of, I do think that this is the best Venom has ever been portrayed in anything. And already to me, like, Insomniac Spider-Man is probably my favorite interpretation of the Spider-Man mythos. It's the one I feel the most connected to. So that helps too. So.
I will say, I agree with you wholeheartedly about like this being the best adaptation of Venom, but I also like, I'm looking at Venom in general, and I don't think the bar was high. You know, I'm like, I don't think there's really good adaptations of Venom, if I'm honest. I think like the concept is always better than the actual payoff of Venom.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like at least Insomniac succeeded more where other times that has failed, beyond the superficial like element that everyone thinks Venom and the black suit is always that cool. That's always been kind of like that. It's like the coolness of things. This is what carries the Venom side of things. But there's a reason why I feel like villains like the Green Goblin and even Dr. Octopus, like from a story perspective, are better villains for Spider-Man to me personally. In fact, Dr. Octopus in the first game, like adding that kind of like tender, and you seeing that entire relationship dissolve with it in your very eyes over good intentions, is like what gave so much power to the 2018 story. But I do feel that they found a way to hit similar beats with Venom, but it's still not the same as like what we saw in 2018. That in my opinion, had a stronger emotional punch as a story. I do feel like the 2018 story is better than this game, but I still like the story overall. But I feel this story also like has a lot of stalling tactics too, which we'll get to when we get more to it.
Well, before we dive into all that and how we feel about the different villains and arcs and the main storyline, let's break down the story a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's start with Act 1. Let's go with there. I'm gonna take the first act here. Marvel Spider-Man 2 starts with both Peter and Miles trying to find their place in the world outside of Spider-Man. Peter is finding it impossible to hold down a job, and Miles needs to apply for college. After thwarting an attack from Sandman, which is absolutely amazing, by the way, Peter returns home to meet Mary Jane. However, once there, Harry Osborn, sworn a son of Norman Osborn and Peter's best friend from childhood, shows up. Harry has suffered through a degenerative disease, but a cure has been found in the form of a new suit, which was worked on by Dr. Connors. Harry then shows Peter that he has been building an impressive research facility called the Emily May Foundation, named after the deceased Emily Osborn and Aunt May. The foundation has one goal: to heal the world. Peter decides to join Harry as a co-founder. While this is going on, Kraven the Hunter is drawn to New York by the villains and superheroes running around. He and his hunters free many of the worst villains in custody, including Martin Lee and Mr. Negative, which drives Miles to consider taking revenge for his father's death at the hands of Lee. It is later revealed that Kraven is dying of cancer, but he refuses to succumb of it. Instead, he chooses to dedicate his life to finding his equal, who will best him in combat. So, I didn't read all of Act 1, but I want to stop in the middle there.
Yeah, because already it's a lot. Yeah, it's already a lot. So let's just start with the Sandman thing. It's like, this is like literally next to God of War 3 and the second hour of Final Fantasy 16, one of the coolest beginnings to any game. It was like, if you needed something to be like, let us flex, let us showcase you what it means to be an exclusive to this new machine, just built for this machine. And that Sandman fight, in my opinion, perfectly represents that. It's like the scale of the big monstrosity that is that Sandman, the insane switches. That's when you get a taste of being able to switch from the two different Spider-Men so seamlessly when they're like super
so
far
cool.
away, and the detail, and kind of like how the flow of that combat goes. It's like it's so exhilarating and gave me kind of like the energy I needed to start the game, to be like, when that sequence ended, I was like, I'm here for a ride. Especially at that moment where that introduces the wings, that Sandman goes far away, and then you like wing your way into like far into the city, and you see that the details never stopped. It's just such a wonderful showcase. And director Brian Entahart mentioned that was like, they knew about this sequence close to when before they finished the 2018 game and wanted spoiler cast that he made. And I can't imagine it took them that long. This is kind of like the train sequence for Uncharted 2. For me, like the equivalent of like, I can see where a lot of time was spent into making sure that this sequence like really nailed it. And I feel like it was like just an expert way to build upon these strong starts from the previous games, like the Kingpin start from the very first game, the Rhino Christmas battle from Miles Morales. I feel like this was a great start. Like honestly, it was so exciting. But then the pumping of the brakes that happened after that, the calm down is brutal though. Is it because it was like this started super exciting, and now let's set up the world. Let's set up like the two characters. Let's set up like what the story stakes are with Peter, like starting and immediately losing his story job, like Miles trying to figure out that whole college thing, Peter going back to his house and getting to meet MJ and getting that flashback with Aunt May. I would say that because I have two thoughts about the flashbacks. I love the flashback with Aunt May because I really love seeing John Peter. Yeah. There is just something about getting to see the young version of him that it was like, yeah, it's cool because at least this is a way to like remind us what we lost with Aunt May, because her death was like the big bittersweet gut punch of the first game, and I feel this is a good use of flashbacks. Peter and Harry's flashbacks at the school though.
Oh, you didn't like it?
No. Those are the ones where I'm like, okay, now we're like, this is where, okay, we see Insomniac saw a lot of Uncharted 4. We see that they saw a lot of whatchamacallit, The Last of Us Left Behind DLC, or even the museum part, and let's try to do this. And here's the thing, like why that works for me in Uncharted 4 and Last of Us, and why that quite doesn't work here. I didn't learn anything from these flashbacks, because a lot of the relationship of what you know about Peter and Harry, that has been like covered, at least me, that I've seen so much Spider-Man media, and even sure. It's like, it feels like, yeah, to me this feels indulgent, because like the unfortunate nature of you adapting a story is that in many different ways, no matter how much you try to like twist the knot or something, you probably know stuff. So at least in those flashbacks, they were to me, they were there just because they wanted to show them more than they wanted to teach you anything. Think about the Uncharted 4 Sam and Drake, young Drake flashbacks.
When they worked for, yeah,
and when they were escaping the orphanage and going like through that, it's like you're learning something. When you're like doing flashbacks and learning something, that to me works. When you're doing this kind of flashbacks, but I didn't learn anything, and reminded me a lot of, this felt like a more elaborate scene of the Peter and Harry meetup from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie, with Andrew Garfield. That I was like, yeah, it's like I feel like I'm watching that. Maybe done better, but I'm watching that. It's until we get to the Emily May, the Emily May Foundation, that I'm like, now here's the angle I like. This is something, because now we're building from that. It's like that flashback already happened. It's like I already knew about like what their relationship is like. I didn't feel like I personally gained anything from it. I did gain more from the present interactions from them, building from that. Is that because the flashbacks to me felt self-indulgent? The current stuff building the story, at least at that point, that's the thing I like, because like I feel that's a good way to segue their now personal loss they both felt with, both Harry losing his mom and Peter losing Aunt May, and them like working together as buddies in honor of their memory. That is a new angle that you usually don't see. I do like that, because also that's how you start connecting more with Harry in the moment than just like the old flashbacks. At least that's how I felt. That those flashbacks, like, yeah, it's more walking and talking, and it's cool seeing like young Peter, but it's like, yeah, it's like they could have easily just done the basketball, and that's it. And it wouldn't have added or distracted anything. That's kind of how I feel. So
I am a man. It's crazy. Like the story centric person in me is like this is why I love having you as a guest, because we
mm-hmm.
defer on some of these things like this. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I love that moment where like Harry and him are hiding in the school, because like we've all been there as kids, and then like
Mm-hmm.
I love the story payoff when inevitably like you get that highest of high moments, because this is what happens in life. Like
Mm-hmm.
in general, you have the highest of high moments, and then like life comes barreling at you, and like next thing you know, like you hit with the lowest moment of Harry's life, and
Yeah.
it's also
Game figure out his way, like Norman breaking the news. That.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
then Peter being there, and that kind of like show like that moment to me is like not just the crux of like Harry and Peter's friendship, because I do think that is like an
Mm-hmm.
important moment that shows you like if you were there for me at my lowest moment in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
that like even though like Norman kind of pushes him like keeps him at
Mm-hmm.
arm length in that scene, like he was still there. It's just like I love that moment of connection there, but it's also the foreshadowing moment of
Mm-hmm.
like Peter was also there when Norman's almost what we could probably consider as one of Norman's lowest moments in life. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I love that art of storytelling to where like you're building for the future, you're also paying off your
Yeah.
future villain, and you're also like you're also ingraining like little moments of
Mm-hmm.
foreshadowing, because like
Yeah.
even in that scene, like the helicopter's light was green when it was
Mm-hmm.
shining on Norman's face, and I'm like, I
Uh-huh.
love that. I love that moment to where
Yeah.
like
Visually, visually, there's like in those subtleties, I do like that.
mm-hmm.
At the same time, like if you read a lot of the diaries from back in the 2018 game,
Yeah.
a lot of these story bits were already told. So that's kind of what I said, that had I not read this, like, and how effective reading that when you're playing as MJ in Norman's apartment, especially when you find out like the medical equipment where Harry was receiving his treatment when you were playing as MJ in the 2018 game. It's like if those story bits didn't read before, I wish it to me. I feel more power where when I'm looking at a flashback, it's both well acted, which this was, and I'm also learning something, because then it means like it has a place in the story beyond just being there. This was just dramatizing something that I had already read. That's why to me, like I felt more power with going through the Emily and May Foundation, like realizing what that meant, because it's like, yep, it's like this is now building towards the story and how you're connecting with your body, and already, and it feels like it goes to show you that how effective writing has been for the Spider-Man games. That I got a lot of like what these flashbacks got me from writing, just reading those things back in the 2018 game.
So
I think that's more of a testament to like with the diaries and all that. So
I completely agree with you. The only pushback I have of that notion is like I don't think the average gamer reads a lot of that, and I don't think
yeah,
they
I can
have
see
that.
that. Yeah, I can see that angle. Yeah, that's what to me personal. That's why to me personally the flashback to me was just like indulgent.
Yeah.
Whereas I can see that working for people that didn't come through every corner of or every cool lore that was in the Osborn apartment in that final MJ section from the 2018 game. So
Yeah, and it's also like PlayStation games haven't trained us to like also like take lore like that as far as like, oh, this is ingrained in the future of storytelling for us.
yeah,
Like
I feel since The Last of Us it kind of has been.
it
So,
kind of it kind of
yeah,
has, but
since
like
then, yeah.
it kind of has, but it's almost like Easter eggish,
Mm-hmm.
versus like okay, so their things are like it's extra seasoning on top of what of the meal, versus like the Elden Ring, it is the lore of the story,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
like I feel like PlayStation like first party hasn't trained us to like do like train mainstream people to actually like take those and like devour everything
Yeah,
of
I
the game.
kind of disagree, especially just thinking like the inspirations. Like, for example, like a lot of like what makes a. I'm not the biggest Uncharted 4 fan, but I like that game a lot. I just enjoy Uncharted 2 and 3 more, like for what I want out of like a more pulpier action adventure thing. Is like that's kind of like the tone that I want, but I like Uncharted 4. It's like a lot of like what's great about the Uncharted 4 story is like through you finding the notes of Henry Avery. And you like piecing together is like it enriches the experience. And with the Last of Us part and Last of Us Part 2 in particular, so much there's so much emotional storytelling from the things that you even find, like even as you're going through it, that adds extra texture of a story that if you're just mainlining, especially in the beginning size of that game, is just a petty revenge story.
Yeah.
and finding that thing that, and they're so good at like environmental storytelling that I feel Insomniac learned that thing, and I applied those lessons, and I got a lot of this out of like me being able to like see the things that were easily discoverable in that in the loft of the 2018 game. Again, like the flashbacks to me were not bad. I feel that they were well acted, and from your perspective, I see it. It's just to me personally that didn't work for me. In that I like when I get flashbacks, I like learning something, because I feel that's the best effective use of flashbacks is you learning new stuff, and I feel like I got their relationship from what I read in the 2018 game. So, which again, credit to the writers to convey that so easily in the other game. So, but I see I see the perspective of someone that didn't do that. Which there's many people that work like that. My brother's like that. So,
he's a mainline kind of guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I told him, because he hasn't played Spider-Man 2 because he went to college and he didn't get a console. I was like, oh, no. I would hate for you to just mainline this stuff, because there's a lot. I feel like side quests in Spider-Man 2 feel more vital and important to where things are going than they did back in 2018. In Miles Morales, they gave texture and emotion to the story, but in Spider-Man 2, they feel vital.
They really do.
To understand where things are going. But yeah, so like so before taking more time with that, like that early high school flashback, I think I appreciated more knowing the scenario of the final boss fight. It's a nice full circle. I was like, that's when I was like, okay, I get it now. It's like I didn't learn anything of that, but I did like the symmetry near the end. But then it's like the Emily Osborn and Aunt May Foundation, kind of like such a perfect way to really connect in a modern way these two characters, and the relationship between Peter and Harry, a great through line. Like, as so much that happens around in the story from a plot perspective, that through line remains strong throughout, even when Kraven shows up. Like how it says there, drawn to New York by the villains and superheroes running around, where he just wants to kill them.
Before we move on to the remainder of Act 1, I do want to, like you said, shout out the Sandman parts, because like the scenes where we are like going through buildings though are amazing, absolutely amazing. Like,
absolutely.
I can't think of another instance in video games where I felt like, oh my goodness, we're seamlessly going through parts that in the past would have been loading screens.
Yes, like, and we're literally like taking it. That's the thing. Like, we kind of had with the train sequence of Uncharted 2 and the airplane sequence of Uncharted 3 in a way. This is taking that energy. Like, Insomniac it's basically like Naughty Dog gave the baton, and Insomniac like grabbed it and took it. It was like, yeah, let's build from there. That's what the Sandman entire sequence reminded me of, and they executed it just as well. You could have told me, yeah, Naughty Dog worked in that sequence. I would believe you.
Oh yeah.
Especially because, thank God for me, it didn't break. The game started breaking after for me. Oh. I would have hated if how amazing that sequence was started. Like if the glitches that I started getting afterwards happened there, because that would have really soured like the immense spectacle that was that moment. I know, like to shout out my buddy Paul, he does not like this fight. What? Like he does not like it, because especially for him, like he's a bigger critic of like the bloat of the early acts, and to him he was like, he appreciated the Kingpin and Rhino fights more because he liked the excitement, but he didn't feel that the moment was too exciting. That then when the game pumped the brakes, he felt it, be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling that now it's gotten real. So I do get that perspective, but I did feel it that way. But I did love the Sandman because I love me some spectacle.
Yeah. Also, like when we were talking a little bit about some of the setup here, like I love the introduction of Kraven. You know, even though we already got to see this previously,
it's still cool. It's still cool. Yeah, it's still cool seeing it. It's still like a great introduction, and cooler for people that didn't watch the showcase to see that introduction and get like kind of like the bait and switch at in that foresty area, and like the initial like conceit of him hunting the supervillains. Really great conceit and great setup. I hate that that's all of it for him. I hate that that's literally all of it for him. That's why I'm like, it's a cool like subversion, because obviously before like seeing a story like the legendary Kraven's Last Hunt from the comics, that's like one of the greatest Kraven stories ever told. That was more indirect to him hunting Spider-Man. So obviously that the twist here is like, no, he's not hunting Spider-Man. He's hunting the supervillains. He just happened to run into Spider-Man eventually, and Spider-Man is barely a blip of where he can like as is like can barely like stand against him. So I just feel
Oh,
for it.
go ahead.
Yeah. So it was, again, really cool setup. Like getting him, like, how it happens, like how violent it like immediately is. Like, yeah, I was like, this guy means business. I like how imposing he looks.
I also want to shout out, like, I love the Craven theme that they introduced in this game.
Oh yes,
Like,
it's played ad nauseum through this entire game.
I love it, and it makes him feel sinister too. I'm like, he feels like almost like a horror movie villain in a way, to where I'm like, I love his theme, and the Insomniac kills it with like the theme of characters, because they still have like the trap drums for Miles. They still have the Peter theme. I love the way they use music in this game, and they do it right from the jump. Before like, let's dive into the remainder of Act 2 though.
Act 1.
Act 1, sorry. Yeah. All right, here we go. The hunters attack Coney Island, almost resulting in civilians dying, as it proves to be too much for Peter. That's when Harry's suit comes to life, a strange black mass of goo and tendrils. Together, they are able to save the day. Did we skip over something here?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we didn't specifically talk about discuss the prison break.
Yeah.
We didn't like talk about. You did read about that. So
yeah, that's true. And the two of them then intend to work together as superheroes, but that dream predictably does not last long. With Spider-Man and Harry circling in on Craven, they go to meet him in a confrontation. However, this doesn't go to plan, and Craven is able to beat both of them.
Easily.
Yeah. Oh man, I love this, by the way. This ends with Peter Parker getting stabbed and dying momentarily. However, Harry's suit then transfers itself to Peter in order to save his life. During this time, Peter tries to transfer the suit back to Harry, but doesn't know how. However, before he can figure it out, Craven activates the dormant lizard in Dr. Connors. Peter uses his suit to take down the enormous lizard, realizing just how powerful it is in the process.
End of Act 1 there. And I tell you that this is just barely scratching the surface, but even a lot happened here. Like, for example, the prison break where you oversee the prison transfer for Martin Lee and both Scorpion. And it's funny you put including Martin Lee and Mr. Negative. They're both the same people.
Yeah, it's typo there.
Yeah, I know. So I was just reading that in our recap chat, but it was like this early on exemplifies something that I feel it's both cool but also a problem with the game trying to handle both characters. It's like the only real character arc in the main story that Miles has is his sudden desire for revenge against Lee over him killing his dad in the first game. It's like I don't to me it doesn't really come out of nowhere, because it's like you can that's like a big element of his character. That's how you're introduced to Miles in the first game. It's just that like the entire story does more with Peter, like from a 75%, that then Miles, a lot of his story is relegated to a lot of side quests, and in like just the main thread of like the two things with Miles is like he's feeling eventually he's starting feeling left out, because when Peter sees that Harry has his powers, he starts leaning more to like hanging out with Harry as kind of like sidekicks, and it even goes together with you on missions and all that. And Miles starts to kind of like feel like a little shafted as like, man, I was your apprentice and you're not he's like, you're telling me to just kind of back off, and like I can help you and all that. And then like it's just like he just wants that revenge on Lee. And it's also funny, like in an opposite side, like early in the sequence, it exemplifies to me like something that I was worried was gonna happen with this game, coming from Miles Morales in 2020. When I played as Miles in that 2020 game, I was like, oh god, this is gonna be rough going back to Peter and not having this Venom abilities that add so much dynamicism to the combat. And I was like, how are they gonna be able to balance both these characters? And early on, my fears were founded. I was like, I don't like playing as Peter. Like his spider legs feel weak in comparison to the Venom, to the Venom attacks. And this wasn't a problem for me, but this is something that Paul told me to really air the grievance on. Is like even with Peter, them giving the spider legs to his character came at the expense of 4 gadgets that a lot of people really love from the first game. And they added a new system, because I think we talked about this in our 2018 chat. Is like, I feel the 2018 game suffered an excess of abilities and gadgets that is like, you have all of this, The
Yeah.
game is not funneling you to really use them or have an intuitive way to use them. Like to be able to switch gadgets in the 2018 game, you had to like hold the L1 or R1 depending on how you had it in options and use the weapon wheel that's like very iconic and very in many Insomniac games to be able to switch around. And when you're playing an Arkham style like reversal combat free flow combat system, the one thing you don't want to be doing is slowing yourself out and to change something. So I know many people didn't use many of the gadgets in combat because why would you slow yourself down when you're like dodging your way, like web striking someone and attacking left and right? And I feel Insomniac did well in like thinking about that. I'd be like, okay, to be able to use gadgets, you hold R1 now and press the buttons. It reminds me a little bit of Arkham. Like when you played Arkham Asylum, City, and even Night, a lot of gadget use already has like button combinations that you can use in the middle of combat for that to be used. And because the heat mapping clearly showed that many people didn't use those gadgets and people really love the Venom abilities. That's why they gave us the spider legs. But in comparison, you tell me, who do you want to play, Peter or Miles? Peter with his like slow spider attacks, or Miles with his Animus style Venom attacks, which in this sequence gets an upgrade immediately, which is basically a Palpatine like Force Lightning attack. Mm-hmm. You're like, why would I want to play as anybody but Miles? And it's so funny. It's like from a story perspective, he's like he's given less of a kind of like a plot drive compared to like Peter that really goes through the gauntlet here. Yeah. But from a gameplay perspective, I'm like I just want to play as Miles. Obviously, other than hearing the cool trap music when I'm flying around, and he has some really cool side quests on his own. It's just I just love playing with him better because until you get the symbiote suit, I didn't like playing as Peter. It's until you get this. Yeah, it's until you get the symbiote. So I was like, I played with him in the main missions that force you to play with him, because there's like there's no alternatives there. I was like, yep, I guess I'll have to play this Kraven section, which is when you see Kraven kill Scorpion. Really cool. I really love seeing that. Mm-hmm. Then I hated knowing that then a bunch of enemies just got off screen. Like I would have loved to see how Kraven killed the Shocker, for example, which is how you or Vulture. It's so it's like I'm like, man, it would have been cool to see that, because then it's like if I'm not gonna get much from Kraven beyond like his setup as a character, because that's what he is. He's like, I want to kill. I want to fight someone that can best me because I'm dying. That's all he is. Compared to Martin Lee in that middle game, where you learn a lot about like what made him a villain, his connection to Feast and all of that. Like that middle section that focused on Kraven a lot in this game. When I compared to Lee, I'm like, man, I remember I got really a lot from Lee from a story perspective that I didn't get from Kraven. Even though the gameplay scenarios that I'm playing in with Kraven are definitely more fun than I remember having when I played with Lee. So it's like it's these weird opposite ways. But yeah,
hold on real quick. We've covered a lot of ground here. I wanna conversate a little bit about some of the stuff we talked about there. The first thing I think you brought up that I wanted to talk about was the mouse thing. So my disagreement on Mao's story is that I do agree that it is a lot of a revenge story, but like for me at least the way I interpret it, it was more of a coming of age, trying to figure out who I am storyline, because like with his college application and also like him losing the mentor, it's almost always like trying to balance. He's now in that classic mode of like, how do I balance out who I am with being Spider-Man? How do I balance out the time my mom wants to spend with me with being Spider-Man?
And a lot of that comes from the side quest. Like
a lot of it does, yeah.
But... and that's the thing. Like I like that because it makes side quests more important. Mm-hmm. I fear for my life for people that just mainline this, that are not gonna get a lot of like so much of what informs Miles as a character is not in that main story. It's a lot in that side quest that adds that texture. So it's kind of what I was saying. It's like if you're just following yellow dots, main mission to main mission to main mission to main mission, there is not much to Miles compared to how much there is with Peter. Even though, to me, Miles is more fun to play early on. And the side quests that are focused on him, the idea of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man app that was introduced in 2020, even though you can do a bunch of that stuff with Peter, it's like, that to me is like straight up Miles' identity. And that's why I did a lot of the side quests for that, because that's how they build that character. Like, if in main story, they're not perfectly like balance in how much they gave us from Miles and how much they gave us from Peter, they made up for it in side quests. And I tell you, people, if you're listening to this, and for some reason you're listening to this, I haven't played this game, please, and you didn't care about spoilers, which would be weird. Do the side stuff and do it with Miles. A lot of that, what you said about your interpretation, I see it from the side quest. Like that's kind of like what I meant. Yeah,
I can get that. The other point is like, it's weird how opposing we can be sometimes, because like I actually kind of like the spider arms. Like I was like I
like them when I upgraded them. Once the full upgrades were there, I was like, okay, I found the fun. Miles is fun immediately from the get-go. From the get-go. So that's kind of how I was like, with Peter you have to earn it, but then it's like, okay, I have to earn it with the upgrades, but with Miles I can have fun immediately, and immediately you get 2 upgrades with him. Well, Peter just has these damn arms, and the gadgets is like that was kind of like my worry, because I was like, yes, like I enjoyed Miles so much, that's why I love that game so much more than 2018, and I was like, yes, like try it hard as they tried, it didn't feel like they kind of quite got the balance right that I wanted to play as both until the symbiote. Then until the symbiote, the opposite happened. I'm like, crap, the symbiote suit is so cool. I kind of just want to keep playing with him now. So it's so funny how that balanced out.
I was the opposite. I loved like Peter's, the arms, and like the using, because I utilize more gadgets when I'm playing with Peter than I do with playing with Miles. Sure, you kind of have to, but like I'm kind of like Paul, where I'm a gadget inclined player. I think when it comes to these games. So I'm like, I sort of found that fun with playing with Peter a lot of the times. Then when I got the symbiote suit, I was like, damn. Now I'm like, I don't get to use those gadgets. I have to use these.
But the thing is that you can, and I would argue that the game is balanced enough, especially because they throw even more enemies at you once you have the symbiote, that if you're just relying on symbiote abilities, you're not gonna immediately win either. Like, no. I feel like the game, because there's something where I agree with my buddy Paul, that the gadgets that I feel were included with this game is like, even the director said, is like the big feedback they got from the 2018 game was like, eliminate DC wins, eliminate the insta wins that a bunch of gadgets and ultimate abilities had in that in the 2018 game. Remember what Blossom L3R3 jump around and just web everything, and that could completely end the fight. It was like there were like 20 different ult abilities that you can have, including like the spider legs were one of those L3R3 things. But it was like why would you use them instead of Web Blossom? It's like when you include easy wins, why would you use anything but the easy wins other than just curiosity? They build the combat with this game with that in mind, and I do feel that the gadgets that they include with this game, you gotta use them, and they're much easier to use, and it's all to help with the flow state. Early on with the spider legs, they're not as good, but then mix them with the gadgets, spider legs start feeling good. Then fully upgrade the spider legs. Oh, they do feel good. It's just that's further into the skill tree compared to Miles, that I'm like, yes, you can even use gadgets here, but his venom powers are like OP from the beginning, and you can immediately start charging them so quickly. So it's like it's just interesting how they balance things. But I feel eventually the game hits a perfect middle point where you got to use everything. And if not, you're gonna get screwed, especially when a special kind of enemy comes in later. So.
I really enjoyed the Peter legs. I found myself using those very frequently, at least until like I did get the suit. But I still
use them. I just didn't have fun initially use them because like, it's like compared to like the big L1X with the electricity, just an immediate jump. With him, it's like have to grab someone, he like lifts them, and then hopefully with that strong, that's when everyone is like, there's like a certain slowness. So I was like, it's like the other guy just feels so much faster.
I want to say this before I forget my thought here. It's like I feel like I wrote this down in my notes when I was playing Spider-Man, and I felt this early on in the Act 1, Act 2 kind of zone here. I feel like Spider-Man is an amalgamation, it feels like it's PlayStation's like the game where you could see all the lessons of PlayStation's past, because it feels like some of the counters and some of the like I guess you could say the unblockable attacks and such like that feel very God of War-ish.
The parry button that got added with this game, with the L1.
It was very God of War-ish. They had some of the stealth things with MJ felt very Last of Us ish. Like they also had the storytelling and the way they told stories feel very Uncharted.
Yes.
So I'm like, it feels like this is almost. I'm not saying this is the greatest game PlayStation put
No,
out. I'm not saying
it feels
that.
like it's like a game amalgamating the greatest hits of many of their
Oh yeah,
different
for
games,
sure. The
and it's
lessons
both
learned.
the lessons learned, both a strength and a weakness. To me personally, being like, yes, like all these games are starting to blend together now. Like it's like it all feels like they're all doing kind of like the same tricks. I still enjoy it because it's executed well, but you can also see the argument. It's like, oh yeah, I see this from this game. This is also from this game. This is also from this game, and that is kind of like the criticism that has been like emerging from Sony first party. That is like you only do that one kind of game. The only thing that changes are specific elements and kind of like the basically the setting and the color swap of things. And but it's still like I still enjoy it. So it's like that to me is not quite a criticism, but I can see that critique of seeing that be like, oh yeah, it's like this is the Sony first party amalgamation of everything. So it's like
I get that, but I'm like, if you're Sony, does it not seem prudent to like you have all these in-house studios? And I feel like this is something Xbox probably needs to do better. Let them learn from one another. Let them take little things from here and there. And I don't give a damn if the results are like, hey, all of our games start to feel a little samey, like a little bit of the same thing. I'm like, you're still putting out the highest level AAA games out there now at this point.
Yeah, to me, it's like it's all more like that you care about what is game of the year and all that. Amalgamating all of that at the same time. That's what holds you back from like then getting the highest honors sometimes. So
yeah,
well, it's still executed well. Polish aside for me,
yeah,
because this was definitely the buggiest I've ever had a PlayStation game in years.
Since Days Gone, probably.
Yeah, yes, since Days Gone, literally. It was like, which to me is like sad because I'm like, yeah, it's like I don't remember this being a problem with the other ones. Like I showed you pictures, the two cars like stuck. That was perfect. You were like, this is premium gaming, and that had just happened to me. I was like, no, screenshot. Yeah, premium gaming. Two cars like stuck like two dogs after finishing intercourse.
So let's give the listeners some context here. Like, for you listeners like me, what Alejandro is talking about here is like, I did not have any bugs in my game except for a audio flaw and like and a 2 cutscenes, I believe, where I had to like where the audio. It's almost like the audio.
It stopped, right? It was like there was like dialogue, but it was like there was like no voices coming out, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I had to basically I would log out and then I would basically restart from there and then everything would go fine. And like Alejandro and his co-host Paul like experienced a whole lot of glitches in their game, a whole lot of like bugs, and they wasn't alone. Like I saw the discourse on social media, they weren't alone. A lot of people experienced that. I did not have that experience though. Like,
and many people were like you. That's what's so. And here's what the most distressing thing about all of this is: when this game was reviewed in the pre-release environment, none of these issues were there. Something happened with the patch. The day one patch that if you're in digital, like you like if you pre-installed the game digitally, that was the patch you got. For some people, smooth game, as polished as you expect their games to be. For many of us, it's like we were like, what happened? How could this happen? And I tell you this because it's like, to me it's insane. Like I played Starfield for 70 hours. I got the glitches that I only started seeing past hour 50 with this game. I was getting like a few hours into this game. Kind of like, it's so funny to think that I like overall, like in my experience, like Starfield was like more polished, even though I enjoyed Spider-Man more. But that to me is like doesn't make any sense. Like how that turned out to me, and especially because I was like, it was so funny. I got to put moments where I got soft locked, like. There's like a few side missions where you have to go into like you're doing Aaron Davis's stashes. There's one where you like crawl in to like find something. I couldn't get out. The prompt was not letting me out. The only way I got out was I fast traveled away. Another time during a Yuri Watanabe side quest, which by the way, Yuri Watanabe becomes Wraith, and she's the and they give her subletter of her own with something called the Flame. And really cool side quest, and like seeing like the evolution. Yeah, we're eventually gonna get there. I had a moment where she got stuck in the environment and she needed to like say something or do something for me to advance through the level. I had to like reload my save. So many instances of me fighting crime where like a car would like, this happened to Paul too, and he had the video that a car just literally just sped through a wall and clipped and disappeared. Mine happened where I had the two cars just like clipping to each other, like again, like they were two dogs finishing having you know what, and they were stuck together. It was so funny. That was the picture that I sent you when you were like, I'm having such a great time. This is such polish. This is premium game. I was like, yeah, premium gaming, right? In one late side quest, which you do with Miles. I think it was with Miles that introduces the chameleon. When I went into his apartment,
love it.
Yeah, great sequence. My Miles was like jello, like the sun was coming out of him, kind of like when you press R3 and it gets you jello of like, yeah, this is kind of like what you're looking for. That's how my Miles looked without the sun looking. I was like, why is there visual glitches like this? And then my favorite glitch, because this was very helpful, when I was doing one crime in the late game, somehow my XP meter bugged, and it took me to full level.
Oh wow!
I was at level 51, and a crime that I beat that should have only given me 350 XP bugged out, and the meter was like full, and it jumped me to level 60 and gave me the trophy. I was like, okay, this is a glitch I'll take, because it cut out my time for the platinum. But it's just all those little details, and I'm like, this never happened to me with Spider-Man 2018. This never happened to me with Miles Morales. I heard it had issues, but it never had those issues with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. How could a day one patch give me this experience that I usually don't expect? This level of like mess ups from a Sony first party. It's like, these are like the guys that I like go for when we talk about kind of like when it comes to premium polish and premium production value and things like that. Other than like a Nintendo game that in their own way, like their games always work. Yeah. Other than Pokemon, it's like Sony.
Gigs,
Yeah, exactly. It's a compared to like Sony that deals with higher fidelity and all that. It was like, I was shocked. This was the first game since Days Gone that I was like, man, it's like, this kind of sucks, because the quality of like what's there when it's not bugging out is like top tier, the highest of tier. And it's unfortunate because that was just my experience. You didn't have that. Other people didn't have that. It's like, it's Russian roulette. And I always made fun of Paul, because usually when I play with a game with him, he's always the one that I always made the joke, there's something with your console. Your games break all the time in ways that they never did to me. And I always made fun of him. And of course, this was the game, both of us, that happened. And now you were me in that scenario. What I usually saw. Apparently it's been patched. And did you see the cube one? That one cracked me up so much.
No,
that if you play the game endlessly without pausing or like shutting the game off, your character will stop rendering. You become a cube that's moving around. Yes,
you become Cubert.
Yeah, you become Cubert, and you're like swinging around, and it's a cube.
Oh,
so
it's
it's insane. I'm like, what did Insomniac was Insomniac rushed to put this out because Sony first party did put out nothing, and they were like, we said it was 2023 and Insomniac usually hustles. It's like, did they need an extra like polish pass? But then I hear this wasn't the problem because all these issues would have come out in the day zero patch. Like, what's in the disc before the day one patch? Usually day one patch is like when they give people review codes to be like, hey, just so you know, your game might behave weird. This is what the day one patch is supposed to fix, so just keep that in mind when you're writing your reviews and things like that. Some people like take that into account. Some people still slam the game, whatever like their priority is. But the day one patch is like what created that. And then you're like, it feels weird that in many of the reviews that I read, this didn't come up. And then me talking with Gene Park, he told us like that this was not there. The Digital Foundry guys that saw the that got to experience and review the game from a tech perspective at the beginning, they were like, that wasn't a problem during the day one. It's like something happened, and that's so weird that this is now joins 3 games that apparently the review environment was different from launch. That was or the review environment was actually better than what launched that. Cyberpunk was that actually on PC. The launch version before the day one patch was actually much smoother. Elden Ring on PC, smooth, like day zero patch, day one patch messed up the PC version, and now Spider-Man. It's like, it's so weird, and it's unfortunate this had to happen to this game because it's like the quality that they were aiming for was significantly higher than what they did before. And how does a day one patch mess you up? I have no idea about it. Tangent aside, hopefully by this time, I haven't played it since I platinuming it. I kind of want to do it again, but I'm waiting for New Game Plus. I kind of want to see if patch really fixed things and like cleaned everything, so that maybe I can see like what an entirely clean experience can be like, because it's like there's so much goodness. We haven't even touched upon that. Just like,
oh, for sure not.
Tangent over. Act 2. Unless you had something else to want to say.
No, I was just gonna say, no, man, you know, everyone had various experiences with the game. I had a premium experience because I didn't have any of those bugs, but yeah,
jealous, super jealous.
I hate it for people who you know, like yourself, that did experience all that, but as a result, like I can only review and
what you experience.
What I
and you're entirely valid. Like that was your experience. I always tell people, it's like you got to take their word. That's how they experience it, man. I believe you. It's like I have the proof. I have the proof of what happened to me, so it's like no one can tell me that I was wrong at seeing the things that I was looking at.
So what you describe as your PlayStation experience with Spider-Man was my Starfield experience, because Starfield was buggy as hell for me.
Exactly.
And, so it was it's just one of those things to where, like, you know, it just happens in gaming, I guess.
It's Russian roulette. It's Russian roulette, I tell you. And even, like, for example, recently I reviewed Alan Wake 2. Pristine experience. I was hearing the Bitcast, the Season Gaming Bitcast. Hogel and Travis had issues. I was like, that didn't happen to me. So again, Russian roulette. I hate that it was Spider-Man, the game that I expect the utmost polish from all the time. That's the one that I got screwed on.
Yeah.
But think about it this way, people. I still gave it a 9. Think how much I like the game.
All right, Alejandro, you want to take Act 2 for us?
Absolutely. Act 2. Peter then begins to act erratic and brash, with a growing sense of anger and violence. He also starts to change his mind about giving the suit back to Harry, despite Harry revealing he will die of his disease without it. Eventually, Peter even becomes somewhat feral, attacking Miles and Mary Jane. Amazing sequence, by the way. This results in Miles being kidnapped by Kraven and forced to fight Martin Lee, who enters Miles' mind and learns about his past. Miles eventually saves Martin Lee, throwing him out of the arena and telling him to get Spider-Man for help. Peter, somewhat begrudgingly, finds Miles' location and goes to save him. After a confrontation with Kraven, Miles has to take on Peter, who is convinced that Miles wants the suit for himself. They then fight, with Miles eventually doing enough damage, and with the sound of a bell, is able to help Peter separate himself from the parasite. I want to kind of stop there because a lot happens in those sections. It's like Peter falling asleep and the suit going feral, and you getting to see it from this outside perspective. Incredible sequence, especially because we didn't even mention it in also the Act 1. It's like this is the second of 3 MJ sequences, which it's where like they have made MJ still like a stealth character, but her sequences, like, they justify that. Apparently when she was in some character, she got training, so she's like John Wick now. She can she can just handle everyone. And there's this amazing too to be like, imagine you being trained for years by an assassin like Kraven, being bested by someone that works from home like MJ.
Hey, Silver Sable was training that woman.
Oh yes, and in those sequences, when MJ sequences before, I was like, oh goddamn! I was like, here comes the slowness because you gotta resolve some weird puzzle, walk really slow. MJ is snappy, like you feel like the offensive more, and her sequences always dovetail into like really amazing turning points. The first one was when, after her sequence, that's when Peter and Harry arrive where he is, and that's when they fight Kraven, and Peter dies. And then the second sequence is you like basically playing Resident Evil and seeing like what the feral, out of control, like symbiote Spider-Man is like, and you like seeing her like going into a tunnel trying to like help him see that Peter is not in control, and you have to escape from that monster. It's like such a, like, I feel they really worked. That really worked. Like, showing you what it's like to you not being in control of that suit, and that was there.
You know what it reminded me of, by the way, because like when you playing as Mary Jane and you're in that tunnel, it reminds me of the Rat King. From Last of Us Part 2. Last of Us Part 2. I was just like, that's exactly what it reminded me of. But I'm like, oh, I love this. And you know me, I'm not even a horror guy, but like I love that moment of suspense to where I'm like, oh snap, like this is like, it's a turning point, like we are legitimately in danger here. No, and they work that perfectly. And it's kind of like what I mentioned, that the moment you get that suit onwards is where I went from liking the game. I was like, yes, I'm enjoying this, but suit comes into Peter, like everything from a story perspective and gameplay perspective, everything starts like rising up a notch. Even like some scenarios,
when like Peter has to interact with the freaking tiger, I was laughing hysterically
Mm-hmm.
because it was like, shockingly, this is a Spider-Man game where you don't laugh too much at Peter's one-liners like you usually do, but he gets funny when he gets the black suit, like immediately, like early on. Like there's like some fun scenarios, but then like he starts like becoming a big jerk, which, from a story perspective, I was rolling my eyes because like, yep, this is like tried and true symbiote story. Peter like eventually starts like becoming too much of a jerk, and like you get a little bit of Bully Maguire from this, but obviously definitely not dancing. That would have been funny, but definitely not. Definitely, we didn't get a dance number. But I did enjoy like some like unsettling moments. Like during this around this time was when you fight a lizard, and like that lizard fight was amazing. Which, by the way,
amazing.
The boss fights on this game, all of them, improvements from the first game.
Oh,
I love, like legitimately, it's like I enjoy that. You needed to do more to beat them. I enjoyed that they have health now. They feel like legit boss fights because before, since the other boss fights from 2018, none of them had boss fights. They all like devolved into the same circle, do web attack, rinse and repeat. And technically you could still do that, but you feel like using your entire arsenal feels like more vital. And you felt it more here, like when you're fighting Lizard, when you're fighting Kraven, and then when the perspective shifts and you're fighting Peter as Miles. Like at that point, the battle between both Spider-Mans after the Kraven is like, I think that may be like my personal favorite like boss fight, like from NMO, other than the final one, which the final one's amazing. But like from like that tries, like I feel they do so much in merging the story importance and like the emotions of the apprentice taking on the master and him potentially losing his master and like all the grievances being aired and all that. Is like there's such a cool fight that took that led us to the eventual sequence that yes, the suit is finally out, Peter is back to being normal, and all of that section is like from that point onward, I feel like the pace just started ramping up and ramping up and ramping up, and even what's coming in here, I'm gonna really emphasize for that.
Hold on, because I know we skirted over a lot of things. I also want to shout out the big major Peter sequence because this happened around this time, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's like
which one?
Where you're chasing down the lizard.
Yeah.
You're chasing down the lizard, and like you and Miles are both like hunters are after the lizard. They're also hunting after you, and like
it's the showcase demo. It's basically if you watch the PlayStation Showcase for May, it's like that entire sequence was in the game. Though funny enough, with more of a slowdown in the switch up between characters, because when you're switching out of Peter, Miles is having a conversation with Haley, her fond deaf girl. Whereas in the game when you switched Spider-Man, like he was already ready to like keep on going. So I was like, interesting. So the demo really caught that entire middle section. Like, I didn't mind because I love Miles so much. I love him interacting with everyone from his world, at least from that perspective, not just relegated to side stuff. And how they dovetail between both Spider-Mans. You go into that warehouse, finding the lizard, and then like them doing the amazing chase. Yeah, the Genki joining you with the big robot. You're both pursuing when lizard is just swimming away and all the hunters are there and you're like pursuing them and you're doing kind of like an equivalent of the Uncharted caravan. That's basically the Uncharted caravan sequence like put into this game. More impressive in this game because it's like there's an entire open world being rendered around you that's still like happening that you could easily fly around, and they're able to like keep that tightness of like set piece in that doesn't get enough credit of how they were able to pull that off. And not only in that sequence, how like there's a part 2 when it's like just Peter, and that's when you fight the bigger lizard, and that even like you're like pursuing it through the city, and then you're like even surfing through a building as you're like trying to like web your way around it. It's like there's like so many. The spectacle of this game like really rose up a notch.
Oh, it really did.
They really rose up a notch. Like how I expected a sequel for them to go. Like as someone that learned their lessons from the first game, like got their feet wet, and they grew confident on that. That entire Lizard sequence was great, especially like how it dovetailed afterwards to you curing Lizard and then having the conversation with Connors. That's how we learned where the symbiote came from, finding the meteor, and us getting the version of how Connors lost his arm.
What?
Yeah, and I was like, that's cool that they tied all of this together because from what I understand, Connors losing his arm, that was like a military thing but random. And in this one they tied it to him like investigating like everything, tying it back to Harry and like the Oscorp trying to find a cure for Harry. That's how they found it, and that's how he lost his arm there.
And it also ties it back to Norman too. Like it's like all Norman's creating a lot of these villains around New York.
Yeah,
like,
and it's so funny how Norman is so low key in this game compared to the first game. It's like he's there. It's like obviously like the focus is more on his son, but it's like after how big of a focus he had, is like how much his presence and impact is still felt throughout the game, even though he's like even more of a supporting, like minimal supporting role in this game compared to how vital he was to everything that was happening that drove Lee and Dr. Octopus to do what they did in the first game. It's it's funny. I like that because I'm like, of course we're gonna get more Norman in the third game. I think the story would have felt even more bloated if he had more of a role. I feel the minimal role that Norman played in this game actually worked.
Perfect.
Considering everything that was there, because it's like, yeah, save it. We know like we're gonna get more of him later, and we're definitely gonna talk about that. But yeah, and that was around the time where Spider-Man was like when he talked to Connors and where the origin of this was, and Connors be like, we gotta get that suit off because we gotta give it back to Harry. It's like that. No, this makes me a better Spider-Man. We are a better Spider-Man. Like using the kind of like that was the moment where I was like, I like that manic. Kind of like it's like the unsettling nature of what the symbiote is doing for Peter is what I love about the symbiote story more than him just screaming and being angry. At the time when he was just screaming later, like at the tail end before like he was gonna rip it off, I was like, yeah, this is a little too try hard for my taste, even though it's well acted. But I found it more unsettling when it was like more subtle. The anger was more subtle because I feel like Jury Lowenthal plays that really well. When it's like, oh, yeah, or something like that, I was like, nah, it's like a little too much. It's like I'm not buying it. I'm not quite buying it. So.
Like I love like the inclusion of Yuri and all that because it is almost modeling the main story. Like it is that thing of like how far do you take revenge or justice into your own hands as well. And I'm like, I love how every side quest in this game mirrors what's going on in the main quest, and
that's why they're vital. It's like what they improved a lot from the 2018 of how vital it feels, that you gotta like so much sequel bait in that side activity, and also so many cool moments in the side activities like Mysterio.
Oh man,
yes, Mysterious Mysterious in this game. That's where we get the challenges, the combat challenges that you remember from Taskmaster, from the last game. But the payoff is a really visually evocative boss fight.
So
like it's like really good. So anything else you want to say before I continue?
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
After Peter removes the symbiote, he travels to Dr. Connors with the entity being trapped in a containment jar to figure out what to do next. However, when arriving at the lab, he and Connors are interrupted by a dying Harry. Harry claims Peter isn't willing to save him by giving him the symbiote. The alien is then able to break out of its containment and rebond with Harry. We then see Harry become the classic version of Venom, who quickly disposes of Spider-Man and then runs rampant through Oscorp, with the player controlling him. Venom then jumps to the middle of Times Square, continuing to cause havoc. Is then that Kraven jumps in, feeling he has discovered his match, the being who will give him the death he seeks.
Let's stop here. What did you think of that Oscorp destruction bit?
Oh no, it's like the
Hulk game.
Yes, it was like it became a Hulk game, and them keeping this a surprise that at least you were gonna have a sequence that you played as Venom. This is top 3 moment of the year for me because it was like just how amazing it transitioned. You're like, oh crap, Venom is here. Holy crap, we're gonna control him. Holy crap, how violent is this? You're like snapping people in half, like biting the necks out, and it just keeps getting more and more and more intense. The fight you have with Kraven and Times Square is so visually intense to the point that then like how he deals with him, like he like just bites the face off of Kraven. In such a like intense handoff. I was like, yep, this is the Venom I wanted. This is like they really like nailed the intensity of this. And again, just knowing that Harry's inside there, the connection you had to him is like, my best friend's trapped there. This monster has overtaken my best friend, and he has the same ideas. When we're both saying we're gonna heal the world, and what that means it's like that's what adds the weight to this Venom more than any other Venom story.
It twists your inhibitions.
Yeah. Yes, he just twisted it, and you just makes him so imposing. You're like, holy crap, how are we gonna deal with this? And especially like how he then like just comes in like a wrecking ball and what he does to New York afterwards. It's like just that Venom sequence, I had a huge smile on my face that entire time, and I was so disappointed we didn't have more sequences where you could play as him. They gave him an entire character kit where you're even trained how to use it, and I'm like, I wish they could have, like, as an Easter egg, like, let me play as Venom, like, just roam around and see what it's like, since we haven't had a controllable Venom in like a big Spider-Man game since 2005's Ultimate Spider-Man. The Amazing trailer came from the PS2. So it's been that long since we had playable Venom that feels like this, like true Venom, like monstrous Venom. Because Spider-Man Friend or Foe doesn't count. Marvel Ultimate Alliance doesn't count. Marvel's Midnight Suns, where you can kind of play as Venom, doesn't count. Like, at least how you expect it. Like, that they nail that, and I feel like, yeah, it's like if they ever wanna, for some reason they now take on the Avengers now, and they want to do the character. At least they got the prototype for Hulk now.
They really do.
With this Venom, and I wouldn't mind it because I felt it worked so well. It's like that was such a high energy sequence that it's not my favorite sequence of the year, because I feel sequences from Final Fantasy 16 and a specific sequence from Alan Wake 2 are like some of my favorites for the year, but it's up there. It's like that Venom sequence, like totally up there. It's like, I was glad that, because I had two things spoiled for this game, and I'm gonna say what those spoilers were when we're done. Yeah. That was not one of them, and I was like, thank God, because that's always my fears. Like, I love surprises, and that was like, I should have seen it coming, of course, but it's like, it's still really great that happened. It was so great. And then all those cheeky tweets of like, yeah, do you want to do like a standalone Venom game? We don't know. We want to see what the response is from fans. I'm like, you bastards. You guys knew what you were doing with that.
They gave you a taste.
They gave us a taste. And now that taste, I'm like, yeah, if you're going to give me a Miles-style Venom game, give it to me. I believe in you. So,
you finish up with Act 2. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So Venom is able to overpower Kraven, and Kraven, knowing he's defeated thanks the symbiote. Venom then bites Kraven's head off. Harry then has a very minor crisis of conscience about this and goes to his dead mother's grave to seek guidance. It's here that the Venom symbiote mimics the voice of his mother, further corrupting Harry into believing that by creating a world infested with symbiotes, he will finally be able to heal the world. Peter discovers that Venom is changing civilians into symbiotes. He eventually is pulled away, though, as after calling Mary Jane, who is back at his house, he sees Harry with her over a video call. Once he arrives, and after a small altercation with Harry, he watches on in horror as Venom attaches a symbiote to Mary Jane, who becomes the Marvel villain, Scream. Another moment that I could not believe they were able to like keep hidden and pull off. And for sure. This was also an equal level to that Miles and Peter battle, because it's like, it's not only a cool boss fight that's really hard, because like Peter is so weak in comparison to fighting Scream, like MJ's Scream, but the things Scream was saying to him that built so much and said so much about MJ's internal struggles, like what that relationship has been for them, as like he's been trying to hold of them together as Peter is like struggling to find a job and all, and that kind of like coming out as frustrations is like such an amazing mix of story and intense boss fight. This is one of the few that I died on. I did die with at this boss fight, because it's like, again, like in a way that actually works. Like, you really feel how much you miss the symbiote after you lose it with Peter, and then having to deal with the symbiotes again. You're like, crap. It's like Peter's really like, he's struggling here, like trying to beat this. Like, obviously the concussion bomb, like earning the sonic thing that helps you to at least like stun those symbiotes.
Yeah,
helps a lot. But it's like, just like you feel it, and I feel the game really lets you feel the absence of how overpowered you were with the symbiote, like for a few sequences. And this Scream section was really good with that. And it just like, if it's from an emotional alone, it's like, this is where like, if I felt the pacing like what already had caught up by the time we played as Venom, Scream happening was like, holy crap, this is insane. I was not expecting this. Is so cool. So
I wanna bounce back a little bit and say that, like, I want to go back to the Times Square thing, the Times Square fight, where you are playing as Venom and you are fighting Kraven. That is one of the moments where I'm like, this is where we finally get to see Kraven like actually flex a little bit. And I know you're not like big on this adaptation of Kraven and the way they portrayed him, but like, I will say, Kraven is a bad motherfucker to where like, where like in a system.
This was my no. I love that. This is why I was like, yeah, from a story perspective, it was like he was very surface level. I love how hard he went on just trying to get like beaten by Venom, and just like that was such a desire. And I feel like this was a great ending to his character,
Oh
and
yeah.
such a great like passing of the baton, because again, like with Martin Lee in the last game, it's like he was such an important piece of the story, but then here is relegated to like side character when Doctor Octopus and the Sinister Six kind of like take over.
Mhm.
That I feel is like, yeah, it's like I'm kind of glad he got killed, because it's such an there was such a badass way to like pass the baton to like now who's the big villain of the to this game. It was such a cool moment.
I like that. I do like that moment, but I like it for two reasons. One is because like Craven won essentially. Like
Uh huh.
everything that he did and everything he was trying to do, he won. He got what he
Mm-hmm.
wanted in the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he wanted an equal who can kill him and relieve him from not having to die of cancer, but
Uh huh.
instead like die as a warrior's death on the battlefield. And he got
Mm-hmm.
what he wanted. He pushed everyone to the brink to where he created a monster enough bad enough to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah.
I'm like, I also love the fact that Craven is such a badass that he couldn't be killed from anything from Earth. This man had
Yeah.
to be killed from an alien. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's why I say, like, from a story conceit, he's so simple, but the things that happen in the story from a gameplay perspective and just moment to moment are really cool, and makes up for the fact that from a story perspective, I didn't learn much from him compared to Lee in the similar time section in the game. But it's like those moments are so cool, because within that moment, that's where we got Lizard. Then in the moment, that's where we like got the symbiote, took the symbiote out, and even within that is where we got his final stand against Venom. It's like at the very least, like from a story perspective, not much there, but what he was enabling for other stories around it. Good catalyst.
oh
Like
yeah.
it's just a good catalyst. It's just not much, not a good central focus for a villain. But
I,
as a catalyst, I'll take it. So.
I do think we like I do think, and this is kind of like leaning towards one of our listener questions that we'll talk about later,
Mhm.
but like I do think it would have been better served if we got to see Craven off, like you said, off one of the off all these characters
Oh yes,
that we
because it's
see.
like because there's at least like the thread is maximized even more.
Hmm.
So
It's almost like, like they say the best story is show not tell.
mhm,
And that part we got to hear about how imposing Craven was,
mhm.
but we never got to see it firsthand.
Yeah, exactly. I feel there was a better middle spot that could have shown that. It's like I was shocked when I saw that. God damn it, he also off the Bolter and Shocker.
Yeah, that was
And
really shocking.
yeah, and I was like, oh man, I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, at least in those specific areas, because it's like it was so shocking and effective seeing Scorpion get off like he did, cutting his
Mhm.
tail off and getting killed with his own tail. So it
I
was so
also
badass.
I do want to ask you something, because like this isn't something that was in the native game, but it was something I noticed like as I was playing. I think he kill Rhino as well.
It's so interesting. We're gonna get into interesting like glitchy spoilers here, because apparently people can glitch into his manor and find the face of Rhino hanging behind like his
Yeah.
throne. But because we never saw it in a cutscene or in official gameplay, I am gonna believe that was just an Easter egg or an idea that they walked back. That they didn't want to kill the entirety of the Sinister Six like they did. So
I was
that is,
wondering, because I'm like,
yeah.
I saw the like I saw it behind his throne, and I
Uh,
was just like, oh, is this like is this really him? Like, did he kill Rhino? What
yeah.
happened?
Like, when do you see it? Do you see it in a cutscene, or do you see it in the glitchy thing that people like
I
glitch into the level to see like?
I didn't experience any glitches like other than
Yeah.
that the mouth glitch we talked about.
Yeah.
Like, so
And there's just some people that were breaking the game that they clipped through the geometry to enter a place they were not supposed to enter, and through the photo mode that you can kind of like move around, they glitched into
oh wow.
into Craven's
Like his
place where
loft?
he usually his loft, and only through it you could see like the face of Rhino. But the fact that you could only find that and you can never really see it from like an official cutscene or an official moment where you're playing, unless I missed it, because this is how I found out about it. I want to believe that that was probably the intention, and then you know how sometimes the game development switches, and sometimes some things are left in despite like changes have happened. So
Mhm.
I am gonna, until told otherwise, because it wasn't. If he was the only one of the Sinister Six that were not directly told was killed, So, because we were not told that way, as we got told of Vulture and Shocker, I would say my boy Rhino made it.
Yeah, your boy Rhino. Are you a Rhino fan like that?
Hey, I enjoyed his boss fight in Miles.
I feel you.
I need at least one of those to survive. This poor fucks.
Yeah, they got absolutely slaughtered, man.
Yeah.
But no, like I was. That's what I was curious about. But so you finished Act 2? Are you?
Yeah. Oh, there's still more.
No.
Yeah, there's still. Yeah, I'm gonna finish Act 2. So after a lengthy boss battle, Peter is able to save Mary Jane from Scream. He then goes about tracking down Venom and eventually finds him in a bank. He and Miles try to clear out the aliens, but are eventually overrun, with Peter having latent remnants of the symbiote activated in him. It's then that Martin Lee arrives and attempts to help Miles by entering into Peter's mind to push out the remnants of the symbiote. Once inside, Miles and Lee travel through Peter's troubled mind, and after altercations with various villains from Peter's past, they fight the source of the infection. Lee realizes in order to save Pete, he needs to transfer all of his power into the symbiote. He does this as Miles holds off all the symbiote attackers. They're both successful and save Peter's life. The transfer of Lee's powers transforms the symbiote inside Peter Parker into anti-venom power, giving him a white symbiote suit. Lee then leaves, powerless, and promises to remember who he is and do good in the world. Anti-venom was one of the things I got spoiled.
Oh, really? I didn't, but I was very disappointed when I found out.
Yes. Here's the thing. I absolutely loved how all this entire sequence played out, because it's like going inside Peter's mind and getting to like witness like his inner struggles like that from Miles' perspective. As shortchanged as I feel Miles was from mainline story, I do love through his eyes we're witnessing like a tried and true story with interesting perspective from him, and him getting to see like the things that are eating at him. At his mentor that he was kind of dealing with as he was dealing with his hatred with Lee was a really cool way for those two arcs to kind of really intersect into each other, and like the theme of second chances and redemption starts like bearing fruit with this game, because like the whole idea of like taking advantage of your second chance is like was seeded all the way since Harry starts, like because that's kind of like him like recovering from his degenerative disease and him starting the May Foundation was kind of like the idea of like he gets a second chance, and there's so much about second chances in life in this game. Martin Lee gets his second chance, like Miles not fully forgives but decides to move on from like his hatred to provide that second chance for Lee to prove that he can change, and him move on and become a better hero, and Peter like overcome his insecurities to find a second chance at not only just personal redemption for his failures, but being able to save others when he usually can't. And from saving MJ as one of his first steps, which she becomes Scream, I like that the second chance, opportunity, and redemption, then it's like pull through for the entirety of the game. That I feel that's like this was one of the moments that actually got slightly teared up, like teary up. Like it was like it felt very cathartic that. To me, I didn't care that I got spoiled of the anti-venom, that Peter became the anti-venom thing. Because one, I was like, when I read that spoiler, I saw it, I was like, yeah, I can see this is how they're gonna, I can imagine this is how they want to justify you still doing upgrades that you upgraded. So you can keep using. So I thought about it from a gameplay perspective, so it didn't bother me. But from a story perspective, I felt they did it so excellent. It was so excellent. It's so hype. Seeing kind of like that, you having that white suit is like an element of you are carrying with you a memento of a villain's redemption in Martin Lee, and how powerful that was, and you getting the power to really overtake the symbiotes. I really loved playing as the anti-venom, even though I hated the suit and had to change it immediately.
Oh man, we're gonna talk about hated suits in a little bit, because
you have a few.
I was like, oh, I like some of these.
Oh yes. So, anything else you want to say before we move to Act 3?
Yeah, I concur with all you said, and no bounce backs or arguments from me there. I do love the metaphors and the themes you brushed up on, like, because it is that theme of like redemption, of second chances, of like putting past behind you so that you can move forward, not necessarily not necessarily opposition as well, because like that was almost like a crux for Miles of like. That was a weight on his shoulders that I want redemption, not necessarily redemption, but revenge on this person so much. It's to my own detriment. And it's a story that PlayStation loves telling because I'm like, it's the
Yeah,
Last
redemption's
of Us
a
story.
redemption's a lot in that. It's like, especially in part two, where so many people say that it's just a game about a petty revenge story. I'm like, you missed the point
No,
if
for
you
sure.
think that's if you. And usually people say that because they just hate the idea of playing as Abby so much, and how much the redemption plays in that area. You don't have to like her. You don't have to fully accept that she was in the right or that bad. You have to accept that at least she's like trying to make amends for like what clearly is eating at her. That wasn't the that didn't bring him the comeuppance that she was gonna get
Yeah, and the same
by
thing,
executing. Yeah,
and the same thing dang, now I'm blanked on her name. Main girl.
main
Um,
girl, Ellie.
Ellie, yeah, the same
Yeah.
thing with Ellie when she finally lets go of
Mm-hmm.
revenge that's been eating at her. A little too
Mm-hmm.
late, but
Yeah,
like let's
exactly.
go.
And the game actually emphasized that it's like the consequence of letting that consume you to the point that then it's like when you realize it's too late, you've lost everything. That's why that game is such a punch in the gut.
Masterpiece. I love it.
Yes,
I love it.
yeah,
It's
so
but to
depressing, that it
but,
is.
but to bring this back to Spider-Man, I was like,
Uh-huh.
that's those same themes are circled here, and then like
Yeah.
when you see the development, I love the development of Martin Lee here, where
Mhm.
like he
Yeah.
was that villain that you hated in the first game, and he was marginalized.
Yeah.
Like throughout the middle part, just like we spoke on before. But
Yeah,
like,
later part, because it was a focus of the middle part.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
So I'm like, but like to see how he comes full circle, and not just because like he has a change of heart and he's trying
Mhm.
to change from the get-go, but because he knows who Miles is, because he
Yeah.
learns Miles' identity and he knows how.
That's what switched that, because you
Yeah.
had a death wish. Like if you notice with Lee, when he's being transferred, he gets captured. Like he has a death wish. He's like, yeah, who cares? I get screwed. It's like him figuring out why Miles like hates him so much and figuring that out, and that planting a seed for him to like. The thing that I love the most is this is why I love him so much as a villain in 2018 was that the persona he had when people knew him in Feast. That was not that was not just fakeness.
No.
That was inherently part of him. He believed in good. It's just that he was consumed by his revenge to Norman Osborn. That erased a lot of like the good that he did. And this is why I feel Martin Lee has one of the best character arcs from like both games. That they would fully complete his character, because it's like this circles back to remind you, it's like, yeah, he did unforgivable things, but an inherent goodness, that the inherently good man that founded Feast has always been there. And it took him seeing like what revenge, someone that hated what he did, painted like what revenge could do to a person, and they both came into that like common understanding, even if it was not full forgiveness. And as much as redemption has been like a theme in recent Sony first party titles, and yeah, I can criticize some being like some games are just copying design things from each other. When it comes to story and theme, like I am not gonna get tired of seeing them deal with redemption.
Yeah.
This is the kind of story that always needs to be tell people. It's like redemption. It's like this is biblical. Look, like redeemed.
It really is. But I mean,
Yes,
and to even play on that further, it's like, do you remember how Martin Lee got his powers?
yeah, he got experimented on by
Norman Osborn, and his
Uh-huh.
parents died as a result of that.
uh-huh.
And Martin Lee ended up taking Miles's parent,
Mhm.
and just that, and like they don't hammer it in. They don't hammer in that circle moment, that full circle moment of
Uh-huh.
like Martin Lee knowing that he did the same thing that he was wanting revenge for.
Uh-huh.
He took that moment. They don't hammer that in, but you see it in his eyes, that realization that I did that to someone else when I wanted revenge for that same thing being done to me.
And I love subtlety like
Yeah.
that. I don't like when themes can be like so obviously this is that you've been sledgehammered in the head to like to really drive the point, which I do feel that Last of Us Part 2 is a little sledgehammery in some themes that it was trying to do, but it hit the most in the subtleties. And I'm glad that point that you mentioned is that what connects both of those characters, not something that's clearly told, but it's something that can click in your mind just by seeing like how Lee reacts when he figures out why.
When he
Miles
figures
was
out
there,
why he hates him so much, and I'm like, man, that's something a lot of people probably are gonna miss, but like that is something that like that character development that you talked about is like so good in this game.
Yeah.
And
this is why right now we're in the period at the point where I love all of this. In fact, since from Black Suit getting the Black Suit onwards, like this is the moment where I love this game you're not gonna hear much of me like they said, because this is the moment where I was like, this is what made the game for me. That even made me be like, okay, I see even some of the questionable parts from early that I wasn't too keen on. I'm seeing I'm seeing it all paid off. That I'm like, yeah, I overall like this. Act 3, Sebastion.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to Act 3, I will say like the first 2 arcs, and the reason why I think I like this game so much in the first 2 arcs is because like the character development and the story they're telling and the way they use. I don't think any other game in the last 2 to 3 years have used side characters better than Marvel Spider-Man 2 at this point, because like the way like we haven't even talked about Riho, man.
Yeah, Rio Morales. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Relegated to a really cool side quests with the museum, things like that. It's a
really cool side quest, but like the impact that she has on not just like Miles, but like the way that she like the way she commands every scene she's in. Every scene she's in, like she's always in the right. She's always the moral compass, but she's always that character to where I'm like, I see all the expressions on her face, and I feel everything she wants me to feel in this. I don't think there's almost like and this is Peter's story. We both when Miles like accented in. I don't think there's a better illustration of a character in this than Rio, though, because I'm like the way that she even like tells Peter off, because like it was part of around like this act when he's going to look for Miles. Oh my goodness, so amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned something about like side characters being used well. It's like this year I also feel like a game like Final Fantasy 16 and Alan Wake 2 also uses side characters like really well. So that's what. So it's like there's been a lot of games that have done that really well. So it's like I don't want to say Spider-Man. It's like Spider-Man is like at least in good company for me.
Yeah,
this is not like something that stands out too much, because I've also been seeing it in other games that did it well. Even I dare even say that even Jedi Survivor used some of his side characters really well. So
I do think
especially if you 100% it. It's I'm glad that they've been taken seriously, because at least when you consider side characters in the 2018 game, Spider-Man 2 does it better. That's the one area where I feel like they really improved on the importance of the side stuff. And even as those side stuff merges into the main story at times. So.
The reason why I said I think like this is like, and I don't mean to bash any other game. I don't want to like slide.
It is just more like your experience. I mean, just saying that I've also seen other games that you really use side characters well. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I played Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm like, that's probably the king of
exactly
at this point. But
I still gotta play it.
Yeah, it's just like I when I'm playing Spider-Man 2, when I experienced everything, it's like the way Riho is portrayed, the way Genki comes across as a realistic character with realistic motivations, especially when like you rescue him from the train and like he starts like doing the mouth vomit of like, oh man, I'm seeing this girl, like I'm in love with her. I'm sorry I haven't told you. And I'm like, man, it's like I love
such a great character motivate. Like it's just this is the thing that PlayStation does well, like interpersonal, that the interactions between characters, like yours, are just so well done. No one makes it like them.
And even the podcast, man. Yeah. Like, oh my goodness, to see like I can't remember Danica, like the way she like idolizes these two, like the way she looks at them as like the beacon of hope for New York, and how that slowly eats away as you playing through the main quest. Yeah,
it's just like start criticizing Black Suit Spider-Man. It's really cool. I feel like it's really interesting. It's really interesting, like downward trajectory in sentiment on like the more you keep playing as Spider, like the more concerned she's like she starts like spouting in her podcast that mirrored a lot of like the typical J. Jonah Jameson
bashing.
That's
exactly what I was about to say. The cynicism there.
So it was like, oh man, it's like it's like the polar opposite of this podcast. It's like devolving. It's like it's interesting, and then obviously when the big thing changes in the city in the later thirds, like how solemn everything becomes, like from both those podcasts when the entire shit hits the fan.
Yeah. So. And it gets to that point to where I'm like, I love that writing, I love that character development, and I love the way like if like we were not talking about yet, but like if they made her into a villain, it would be a really cool arc to where you got to see in the third game. That is, you would get to see her spiral into villainy from beginning to the end, and I'm like, it would almost be like, I would almost challenge anyone to find a better well-written arc around 3 games, at that point.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you ready? Yeah, you ready for Act 3?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I went long there. Here we go. Act 3. Peter then tracks Venom into an Oscorp lab where a spiral meteorite, which landed with Venom and which appears to be the source of a lot of his power, is kept. This becomes an object of obsession for Venom, who breaks into the lab and confronts Norman Osborn. Norman asks for Venom to return Harry, to which Venom says, "We are your son." Yeah, that was so cool, man. That was really cool. He then explains he is healthy and strong and everything Norman ever wanted. Peter then turns up to save Norman. While he does, Venom gets both pieces of the meteorite and joins them together before escaping. Connor then reveals to Peter that he can still stop Venom, but he'll have to kill Harry to do so. Norman Osborn then walks over and asks Peter to save his son.
Another spoiler that I had read was Harry dies, which when I read it, I rolled my eyes because I was like, of course, when do I read a Spider-Man or see a Spider-Man something and that doesn't happen to Harry?
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised at how the story ended. Let's just say that because I was like, oh, the spoiler was wrong. So
I'm surprised about that too. Then let's see. When Peter returns to the surface, he finds New York has been entirely taken over by the Venom symbiote. Very Web of Shadows-esque, by the way.
Yeah, that's why I have it here. That's why I have it here, because it was like, because it's so funny because when Venom like lifts the grave when they're like at Air, and he's like, we're gonna heal the world, and you see that visual of like the Venom symbiote like enveloping the world. It's like, is that actually what's really happening? Is it that scale? But then when you go outside, you're like, okay, it's like, I get the idea. It's like we're getting some Web of Shadows inspiration, but it's like it's not taking over the entire city. It's just a few elements, because there's some moments here in the city people are just walking around like nothing. It was until this moment I was like, okay, no, they actually did see a Web of Shadows and they're like, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do it now in a game that's actually good.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing, because Web of Shadows is a fun time, but it's not a good game.
No, for sure not.
It's not a good time, but I enjoy that game a lot.
It's a guilty pleasure type of game, man.
Oh yeah.
After some
it's
time,
super fun. It's super fun. Yeah.
After some time trying to save people, Peter tracks down where Venom is hiding. Miles asks Peter to wait a couple of minutes as Haley is in trouble. By the way, since we passed through Haley, before we get to this, Haley also had a main line,
a side quest. Yeah, she had a side quest where you play as her, and the way they portrayed her was actually really an interesting experience of them, how to try to visualize deafness through like the different like figures that were being painted, like as that it would look like she was imagining them to try to like visualize the things that she couldn't hear. I thought that was an interesting decision to portray that. I would say a lot of the side quests from the Miles side of things, I do feel like, as much as I do love how they handle representation, I feel they were pushing a little too many agendas in this game in a way that was like, yeah, I see some people are gonna be they're gonna have a stick up their ass about this. Yeah. I didn't mind it, but I did feel that for me that Miles Morales in 2020 was so perfect in how like naturally they did representation. It did feel a little bit more like in your face in this one. They're a little bit more showy, like the BIPOC artist and all that, like the gay couple and all that that you're helping them get a date. It's like a cute moments, but it's just a little. It was a little too more in your face in a way that where in Miles Morales they made it so perfectly in a way that it was there. And that's how it should be. It's just natural. It's just subtle and natural. In this one, was a little bit more, and I feel like the Haley part of things kind of painted it up. But I did love her side quest. I also love her that you play as her, because it was like such an interesting experience. It's rare that you get to play a character that's deaf, and how is that portrayed in a game? It's like, I'm glad that they put it in. So.
I am too. It makes me feel like they're gearing up for a little echo side game.
Yeah.
But
I mean, with the Murdoch and with the Murdoch kind of like tease, and you can find the hand in one of those buildings. Like, hey, maybe it's like there's supposed to be many heroes that are just not here in this game. off in the West Coast or
Yeah,
somewhere.
especially with the rumor that they're making a Daredevil game. This kind of feels like
Yeah.
they kind of like are trying to get us like softly like used to that concept. But I sort of like the representation aspect. Like
I like it too. It's just more like I feel like Miles Morales like seated it in a way that was more natural. Well, in a way that some things felt more. One I can imagine. Yeah, not quite shoehorned, but I felt like more in your face preaching in a way that I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it's like that sure is gonna ruffle some feathers for the people that hate it, right? Yeah, so it's like, which that's why I appreciate Miles so much, because like it so naturally included like the importance of like the black people and the artists and the gay couple of the at the feast. It was like so natural. That's how it should be. Like just make it. That's why I love Last of Us. Like Last of Us 2 makes that so natural. It's like that's not so. It's not pushing some people say it's pushing an agenda, but it's not. It's like they're treating people like people. Yeah. That's how it should be treated. So yeah.
I really didn't have any problems with the representation here. I guess maybe because I'm a sucker for it. I love that we got to see so many different walks of life. So before we move on to the Act 3, I do want to say I did love that museum side mission, by the way, where you're hunting down like all the jazz history.
Oh yes. It's again because it's like exemplifies Miles as the hero of his people. Because that museum is it was on Harlem. It's like it's a very Harlem thing. It's like it's reminded me most of like the successful side missions from Miles Morales in 2020.
Yeah, it really did. Act number 3,
we're still there.
We're still there, people.
Yeah.
Like when Peter returns to the surface, we got to that part. Venom says they'd like to show Peter something before transferring a vision to Peter. Harry Osborn then explains he is now healed and by allowing the symbiote to take over the world, they can heal everyone. Venom then says that they need Peter with them on their side, and then shares a brief look at the meteorite, revealing its location to Peter. Just then, Miles arrives to save Peter and blast a hole in the roof, and they both escape. Miles, Mary Jane, and Peter Parker meet back at Peter's house, where they devise a plan to take the meteorite and beat Venom. So, did you, by the way, like this kind of starts like a Mary Jane mission that might have like I actually really love this mission.
Yes, I love it. That's the thing. Like everything with MJ, I love in this game. I said is like that's probably the biggest improvement from 2018 to this one. That them figuring out a way to make MJ like fun to play. Even though not many people are like, you made her so P. Like, look at that third mission. You gave her like a Sonic thing in the guns where all the like Peter and Miles are like battling through her like to their lives trying to beat all this like monster, and they can just like aim and shoot and kill all of them like so quickly. It's like it's funny, but I'm like I don't care, because I'm just having fun with this character now in a way that I didn't. I dread it, like whereas in 2018 I dreaded every character switch up. I don't dread it in 2018. In fact, I actually get excited because it's like they made her sequences fun. Which, by the way, and sometime in this part is where you get the new suit for Miles.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's go ahead and talk about this. This hurt my soul, by the way. Yeah. They gave him, and I like representation. I just told you. I understand that you wanted a suit to maybe accent his dread, like his
hair.
Marks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not like his blue and pink suit at all. Yeah. At all. Oh,
especially when we learned it was an Adidas ad.
Yeah.
That's why they put it in. I'm like, come on. It's like, if you're putting this because you had like some weird brand deal off the game to do that, don't do that. It's like that's like immersion breaking, and it's just it just hurts because he has so many cool looking suits that why is that? Yeah. Why was that the one? Especially the one that turned out to be kind of like an Adidas cross marketing campaign.
So, they have like a really cool Miles suit that's like where he's like wearing a hoodie, so to speak.
I love the hoodie one. I freaking love the hoodie one. That still has the texture from his normal suit. Yeah. That then like because you can change the colors. That's the one that I loved using the most because I love me some hoodie characters. I feel they just look so cool. Especially the one that is not with the cape that made it look like Batman. I like the one that was just a hoodie and not the one that had like the long cape.
That the reason why I bring that up is like throw some Adidas shoes on that one, and I think that would have been the perfect little Adidas ad thing at the end of the game, and I wouldn't have even tripped about it. Like, I think if the suit looked like really badass, I wouldn't have cared that Adidas was the one who like had the little ad in there. I still don't care to this day. I just want his suit to look badass, and the fact that
or more like include the Adidas thing, but not making like the big suit change that's part of the story, because the fact that then you know that it's a marketing ploy like takes you out of it. I don't care if it exists as an unlockable. That would be cool. It's like, oh yeah, they did the Adidas cross thing. It's like, it's cool that you can unlock that, but the fact that it becomes like part of the story, and you know that it's a marketing brand deal, is like they crossed the line there. That I'm like, you shouldn't have done that, especially revealing that, because on top of it looking goofy AF, that takes me out of it now, knowing that it's an Adidas ad. So,
I just wish the mainline suit for Miles going forward looked better. That's all I'm like. That's all I care about right now.
I hope that's the thing. Like, universally, I have not seen anyone love the suit.
No,
and I know, so they're probably gonna walk that back. So yeah, and that leads us to basically the end, Act 4. Yeah, ready?
You
just finish up the final 2 paragraphs of 3, and then we go to Act 4.
Yeah, the 3 arrive in the park. Let's see. The 3 arrive in the park despite Mary Jane running into the symbiotes inside the nest. She's able to take the meteorite, and she then leaves and then goes on the run from the symbiote horde with Miles. Go ahead.
Really cool, really cool moment of seeing all this, like this, the World War Z style, like amount of symbiotes pursuing them, and she going using the motorcycle, and like obviously cool. early on she had an Akira fail in the tunnels, and someone did also make the funny observation: why is she like riding a motorcycle with those shoes?
She does have like these very teacher-like shoes on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's so weird when they could have put her in boots, like knee-high boots. I don't know why they didn't put it. So it makes her look kind of goofy in a way, because you know that some people, like, when they ride motorcycles, they need sturdier shoes. So that was just kind of like a little detail. So Act 4. Elsewhere, Venom catches up to Peter Parker and takes him back to his and Harry's old school, which is suspended in the air. The two then fight, discussing their friendship as they do so. After a prolonged boss fight, Venom grabs Peter, who says that no matter what Venom does to him, he's never going to heal the world with him. Venom then senses that the meteorite has been stolen. He immediately sprouts massive bat-like wings and flies away with Peter in her hand. By the way, those bat wing thing is so metal, like such a hard rock metal look. At the same time, Miles and Mary Jane arrive at the Foundation to destroy the meteorite. However, they are interrupted by Venom crashing through the ceiling with Peter, who is passed out. Miles then has a prolonged fight with the winged Venom. Venom, Miles, and Peter then fight in the sky. They're able to overpower Venom, and Miles takes the meteorite and places it in the particle accelerator, while Peter and Venom continue to fight. Peter is able to reach Harry a couple of times, who says that Peter will have to kill him. They fight back to the center until Harry starts to tear the symbiote off his chest, telling Pete to do it now. Peter then uses his anti-venom powers to begin weakening Venom. After some resistance, Peter is able to vanquish the symbiote, telling his friend he loves him before Harry seemingly dies. The particle accelerator then goes off, breaking the meteorite and the symbiote's grip over New York. The Venom symbiote then evaporates. Peter then returns to Harry's body, telling him how sorry he is. Miles then jumps in and attempts to revive Harry with his electrical powers. He is successful, but Harry only returns for a moment before falling unconscious with a very weak pulse. Peter brings Harry outside to an ambulance where Norman Osborn flies down next to them. Miles and Peter help Harry onto stretcher. Norman turns to both Spider-Man, asking them angrily, "What have you done?" Peter is only able to say, "I'm sorry." Norman then rides to the hospital with Harry. Sometimes later, we see Harry laid out on a bed back at the Osborn's house. It's then revealed Harry has slipped into a coma and his chances of coming back are very slim. Norman then asks the doctor to just keep him alive. Norman then takes a walking stick meant as a gift for Harry and starts smashing the room. Peter and Mary Jane leave quietly as Norman tears apart the equipment. He then makes a call and asks someone to get the G serum ready. Later, we fade to find Mary Jane recording a new podcast, next to a letter confirming she now lives with Peter. She finishes and finds Peter cooking for Miles, his mom, Genki, and Haley. Peter then takes Mary Jane outside and shows that he's working on restarting the Emily May Foundation in the garage. Peter then gets an alert on his phone about Spider-Man's problems. Mary Jane asks Peter if he has told Miles. He says not yet. Miles then appears dressed as Spider-Man, asking if Peter is ready. Peter begins to explain, and Miles stops him, telling him he's got this. All of it. He then tells Peter to go be Peter Parker for a while, and that he can handle the role of Spider-Man for now. Miles says there may come a time when he needs Peter's help in the future. Peter assures Miles that he will always be there for him. Miles then swings away, leaving Peter semi-retired and able to build his life with Mary Jane. End credits. So
I'm not gonna lie to you. When he first said did you tell him yet? Like when Mary Jane was just like, did you tell me yet? I thought they were pregnant. I thought there was gonna be. I thought they were hitting that thing. They're having a baby, man.
Yeah. Maybe they will in the retirement.
Yeah.
So, I will say this is because obviously this came out recently as confirmation that the writers did an interview and this confirmed. Yes, Miles is their main Spider-Man going forward, and I'm like, I can see that, but also I'm like, I know for a fact that's not gonna be the case. You're not gonna build a game where you made it a point to have two characters, the two characters next to each other, and then just backslid into one.
Also, the Norman Osborn thing, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's that would be that just wouldn't work to me personally. It's having Norman Osborn as the main villain for Miles Morales. I don't think. Yeah, nah. I'm not accepting that. I don't believe that. I do believe though that maybe if the main plot line of Spider-Man 2 lean more into Peter with Miles kind of having a 25%, maybe we're gonna get a 60-40 with Miles taking more of a center stage, but we still get Peter sections. Though I can imagine him also taking a back seat and being the computer guy that helps him in a way. But that's the thing. It's there's no way. Yeah, the guy in the chair basically. But it's I do not believe for a second that whenever Spider-Man 3, whatever they call it, comes. Of course they're gonna call it Spider-Man 3. If they call it Spider-Man 2, why wouldn't you? That the fact that then did we put the post-credit? No, we didn't. Yeah, the post-credit scenes were not even here. It's in the post-credit scenes, it's you get two in this game. You get Norman Osborn visiting Dr. Octopus at Rikers Island, and how it's clear that it's setting up that Norman is gonna break Doc Ock out because Doc Ock wants his revenge in Spider-Man. Now they're finally, their interests are aligned. Norman is desperate to fix Harry, and he knows that there may be a shot of him coming back or not, but Peter and Miles left him like that. He wants revenge, and of course gonna want a revenge in the normal Spider-Man, and not just
hold on before you go on. Stan OP wrote in just you can at thepronereport.com or the single player experience Discord server. We're doing some write-in questions that integrate now. And Stan OP asked, are there parts of the story you wish were different / where do you think they'll go for the third game?
So overall, I think what the story told, I think it worked well. To me personally, I would have liked a bit more of nuanced Kraven. More than what we got. Instead of being this catalyst that eventually pushes us for the third act, that's the one area, especially just comparing to Martin Lee, how much I got from him, that I feel they could have done that with Kraven, and Kraven feels like the one character that Insomniac has made that felt a little too close to the comic. And the thing that I like about them is that they take those characters and they give them their own twist. I don't think they gave Kraven their own twist. And then when you see how Venom, as Harry as Venom, was a unique enough twist in an Insomniac way that made that character better, that's what I would have changed. And maybe reeling it back to 2018 not gave me so much of the backstory in written form, so that then when I got the flashbacks here would have been more fulfilling for me personally. But yeah, I wouldn't change much from the story. Overall, it's a pretty great story. It's just I had more the emotional punch of losing May was bigger than Harry almost died but didn't. Yeah. Even though I was happy that didn't happen, because from my perspective, that the spoiler I read was Harry does, which was of course, that's the road they're taking. It's I was pleasantly surprised, oh, thank God that was a lie. It's now he's kind of in play. Will he be a goblin? Who knows? But where do we think we'll go for a third game? The game kind of really teases a lot of where this is going.
Oh yeah,
It's almost too obviously. It's obviously I mentioned the post-credit scene of Norman and Doc Ock. Obviously that's going to be a thing. G Serum, it's clear. Green Goblin is the big thing coming after. Here's my big thing. They went so big.
Do you think you think he's the big thing over Doc Octopus?
That's the thing. It's going to be both of them together. Dr. Octopus and Green Goblin, like, together, like the two biggest Spider-Man villains that have more of a connection to Peter. The weird thing is that what connects Green Goblin as one of the greatest villains for Spider-Man is the fact that he kills Gwen Stacy. Or more like, he puts Gwen Stacy in the position that Spider-Man kills her in an accident. And that's what makes them eternal enemies, or like the villain that hurts Peter the most. There's no Gwen Stacy in this game. So it's like, the connection to Norman Osborn is different. But there's something that I'm also thinking about in my mind, kind of like, okay, like, did you see how big they went with Venom? Like, how the Venom symbiote just like enveloped all of New York. What could they do with Green Goblin and the Return of Dr. Octopus that could top that on a Spider-Man 3?
I don't think you go. I don't necessarily think you go citywide. Like, I think you go emotional with it. Like, I think you go,
and you gotta go big emotionally, because it's like you went too big on spectacle with this one, though. Again, so many kernels of where things could go. It's like, let's not forget, the multiverse exists.
Oh, it does.
They teased it very blatantly in a side quest of the Spider-Bots that clearly introduced the existence of Miguel O'Hara, the Spider-Man 2099, and the entire like Spider Society from across the Spider-Verse. It's like, it's clear. It was a clear connection to that movie, and it's such a cool moment getting to see the art style change of like that of that
the Spider-Verse.
of the Spider-Verse. I was like, that's so cool. And also the fact that, because this was also brushed over in the middle section of our talk, because so much happens, is like, they have multiverse mechanics already. We got tease of this in that main quest for whatchamacallit, for Black Cat, where you get the Doctor Strange things, that I'm like, that is like, now I understand why you always keep saying like they could do like a cool Doctor Strange thing because of Rift Apart. There's Rift Apart. It's like they doing that. It's like, I wouldn't personally want that. I would rather do them be like in a Spider-Man game, because I kind of want them to do other games, not just Marvel stuff, but bring them in. How do you did it here? I love the entire Black Cat, how they were able to use the technology from Rift Apart so well in this game, and how well that worked, that I'm like, they got the tech. It's like, maybe it's like a multiversal thing that also includes Doc Ock and Green Goblin. It's like, they got their spectacle angle if they need it. Like, it's there if they want to pull it. On top of the fact that loose threads, like everything that happened with Yuri Watanabe, that leads us to that the person that she's been like pursuing, it's actually Cletus Cassidy.
Yep.
The Carnage. Yeah, and he just escapes, and that's like a loose end of being like, yeah, the Venom symbiote is gone, but he left the city before, like, so he still has it. So
man, it's like, okay, so we got Doc Ock. Well, let's answer another question, because like
there's so much there. Yeah,
that ties into all this as well. Like Darius23, for instance, said, I was shocked that they killed off villains. Do you think there's enough villains remaining for Spider-Man 3?
Brian Intihar literally said in a spoilercast that there's still enough villains for them. I'm like, I can't think of at the top of my head. I can think of Morbius. I can.
So like let's just name some, because all right, in this game we got, I think Chameleon is like
Chameleon has been set up, so he's gonna show up there. Interesting, by the way, like, I do like how they made him a brother for Kraven. That's an interesting thing, relegated to side stuff. No. Exactly. And I'm like, here's an interesting thing. I wish that would have been like more like seated in the main quest for that for me, because that answers me something that I'm like, okay, here's the Insomniac twist, but those Insomniac twists for Kraven were like relegated to the side.
But
so
maybe you don't do that because you want to use Chameleon in the future.
Yeah.
And like, and so like, okay, so we got Chameleon there.
You know what? By the way, do you know what reminds me of, what Chameleon reminds me of? Do you remember Hush in Arkham City?
Yes,
exactly. Arkham, that's literally what they did. So
yeah, that's exactly right. Chameleon, we got him. We already got Carnage, so we got that confirmed. We got probably Doc Ock, and we got Osborn as Green Goblin, I would imagine. So that's 4 right there.
Yeah, you mentioned Carnage already.
Yeah, we mentioned Carnage.
Okay.
Chameleon, Doc Ock, Green Goblin.
Yeah, that's 4.
So Harry's also like, with
that potential.
Is he still dying? So is that Hobgoblin?
Yeah, it could be Hobgoblin if that's how he gets the Gear Serum.
So let's just say that's 5.
Potential. Mhm.
That's crazy already.
Uh,
That's a stacked cast already.
yeah.
But then like, uh, let's just
The
say,
Rhino is not officially dead, so I'm gonna roll onto that, so he could show up.
but also Silk.
Yeah, but she's not villain. She hero.
Well, she's kind of like,
Yeah, like an anti-hero.
yeah, because I'm like, she's a crime boss as well in a lot of comics.
Depends on the angle. Yeah, depends on the angle. So
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because I'm like, in a lot of angles, there's an angle where like she becomes a crime lord, and like she becomes like kingpin. So I'm like, she also is not afraid of killing. So I'm like, okay, is that?
And she's in love with Peter Parker, and so
yeah, the hormone balance that they got is crazy. But but
because of them being bitten, Paul was telling me this, that they're by the same spider, so that created like a weird, interesting connection. But I'm like, I was telling Paul about this, that I feel Insomniac has enough respect for these characters that they wouldn't pursue those kind of things. Like, do you remember like that weird story that there's like an alternate universe where Spider-Man killed Mary Jane with his semen?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so it's like, I don't feel like Insomniac has enough self-respect and like the tone that they have said that we're not gonna pursue weirdness in the Silk side.
I don't know if they pursued wilderness, but I could see them saying there's an attraction there. Because but here's the thing.
Some Marvel comics get weird. That's the thing. They can get weird and disturbing, and I feel Insomniac has shown that they have a tender hand with how they're portraying these characters, that I'm not worried about anything weird that from characters that had experienced weirdness before. In some medium, they're going to be weird here. I doubt it.
Here's the thing, and I want to use like your logic that you had earlier, because I think it's apropos here. Like, Silk, who says Silk got bitten by the same one in this universe as Peter Parker? What if Silk got the same spider as Miles in this universe? And she's attracted to Miles chemically, not necessarily in that same way that it has to be like sexual nature, but like there's always going to be an attraction there because they got bit by the same spider.
To me, you're into something, because think about it this way: how are we introduced to the idea of Silk with this game? Just as he's kissing Haley.
Yep.
I can imagine them trying to pursue like some weird love triangle there, at the poor expense of Haley. But that would be, it would be interesting to see if they'd really pursue that, and if I would like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, you already threw Silk in the mix, so I'm like, there's only so many ways you go with that. So I'm like,
it to me, it was like throwing Silk in the mix was such a left turn.
Yeah,
I was expecting Spider-Gwen. So.
I was too. I think we said that in earlier shows that I thought Gwen was gonna be teed up, but like, yeah, it's crazy.
There's just no Gwen in this universe. Like, absolutely no Gwen.
All right, James B said, wrote in just like you can on the pronerdreport.com or the single player experience Discord server. The link to both of those below will be in the description.
Yeah, I think I got a couple questions in.
Yeah, did you prefer to play with Miles or Peter in this game? You said Miles except for Peter's symbiote suit, right?
Yeah, it was like first half of the game before the symbiote suit. If the game gave me the option to switch as both, I was playing Miles all the way. Then when Peter got the symbiote suit, it was harder for me to like go back to Miles. But then I feel by the end, both felt equally powerful, that I had equal fun with both of them. But in that early section prior to symbiote, I was concerned that I was like, I like Miles significantly better. It's like, yeah.
I'm a Miles guy. Like, so there's I would say three real play styles, right? There's Miles, there's Peter with the spider arms, and then there's Peter symbiote. I would probably say Miles again is my favorite to play as. Then I would probably say Peter with the spider arms. Then I'd say symbiote.
Yeah. So you're in the symbiote is like your least favorite one. That was my favorite one.
Yeah.
And it's just because it's just so, especially the way the scenarios played out to really unleash that power was just so fun. It was just so intense, and the flow state of tendril attack, big ball of wax, explosion, tendril to grab everything, mixing with the gadgets that I had fully upgraded, most of them at the time, and the back and forth of all that, I was like, feels amazing. I really love that. But then again, like I mentioned, like the spider legs for me reached their potential when I fully upgraded them. I was like, I love the electricity explosion at the end of like the attack of the L1 square. I really love the L1 triangle that helped me push enemies into like web attacks easy. I'm trying to remember, what was the L1 circle one? Was that an electricity one that shot the thing? I think there was one that shot some electricity things that would paralyze some enemies, if I'm trying to remember. And then obviously the L1X helped. Eventually, I feel like you upgrade the L1X to lift more enemies up. That I was like, okay, it's finally getting to where at base Miles feels like. So
Yeah.
again, it's like I feel like they intentionally held back on Peter, like in how good he felt, and Miles just felt so OP immediately and was building more powers also immediately. So it was like it was just interesting, and also signposting. If Miles was getting all those powers early on, you should have seen that ending coming. Yeah, he's our Spider-Man. That you know who Insomniac really likes buttressing their butter with.
So Twisted Pizza Boy and Stan OP wrote in with this question and said, "What is your favorite suit in the game?"
So this is gonna sound really boring, but I'm gonna go with it. I love the fact that you can switch colors of some suits. The second color from the main suit from Peter, that it's black and red, looks so great that I was like, man, this like colors, because I feel like the red and blue of just the normal one is like a little too colorful for the realism of the game. That I feel that black and red one fit really well to the visual style of the game, and it felt like a nice evolution for me. So I kind of stuck with that suit. I did love the classic symbiote suit though.
I like
from the cartoon, from the cartoon.
Yeah.
And then from Miles, I really like the one with the hoodie. That hoodie one was like,
I think mine was the hoodie or the Across the Spider-Verse one.
Yeah, the Across the Spider-Verse one was because I loved it on the I loved it back in the Miles Morales one. So here was like, yeah, it's like not new. I do like the Venom variants for Miles. So he got a lot of Venom variants.
Yeah, he did.
I was like, yeah, and Peter just got one. That's so weird.
Yeah,
but he technically also had the anti-Venom suit. Interesting that you cannot go back to the black suit anymore, like at post game.
Nah, but I mean, they gave you.
You're anti-Venom. Yeah, you're anti-Venom now. So.
Yeah. Let's see. We already said this, John Stevenson, but I wanna read you out a little bit. It's better than the first game, but I hate the Mary Jane missions. Do you guys feel the same? So
you couldn't be more wrong, John Stevenson. Like MJ missions were rocked in this game. There were only 3. They were so much better than last time. Like go back to 2018, and then play this and tell me they're equally as boring. Like, I dare you.
Yeah, I'm with Alejandro.
You're rock, John. We're just kidding, but yeah.
I'm like, we love you, John, but like, I got love for these MJ missions. Lord Phelps wrote in and said, as a fan of Craven's last comic, I was looking forward to seeing how this adaptation of Craven would come off. What do you think of Spider-Man 2's version of Craven? We kind of alluded to this earlier. Like
I feel Craven's Last Stand alone would make its own game. There's so much there's something cool. I feel that Craven can carry his own game, and I feel like to me it's just the fact that me as a big Venom fan, knowing he was coming, it was like, and the little that I got in the main story from Craven, from different nuances from what I expect from Craven that I read from that comic and in many different Craven stories that I've seen in other games and even in some like cartoons, like the 90s cartoon. I feel like what I got from Craven is what I expect from Craven, and he's fun. It's just that I like a little bit more nuance, and especially with the nuance that they gave us with Venom. So to me, he was just a catalyst, but too much time was spent with him as a catalyst, just knowing how big the game goes for Venom, that it does feel like we got the plot of Spider-Man 2 and a Spider-Man 3 crammed together with just how wildly the tone shifts when Venom comes in. Isn't it like crazy just how insanely it just changes visually and in feel and flow once like Venom enters the picture? It's like kind of wild how the contrast between both those sides of the game. But it was fine. It's just like I mentioned it before, it's like when I compare his middle section of the game to Martin Lee from 2018, Martin Lee from a story perspective gave me more. Craven gave me more from gameplay. So
yeah, I liked Craven. I love the first half of this game though, immensely. So I'm like, I did like him. I just wish we would have got to see a little bit more of the
nuances
side.
were the vicious side and the nuances were relegated to side stuff, and I feel that does a disservice for the people that are not gonna see that.
No, it's almost like one of the action movies that I really enjoy is John Wick, and I like it because it's a lot of show, not telling. I'm like, we get to see how badass John Wick is, but like But like a whole lot of people like Equalizer and like the Equalizer movies, and I don't really care much for Equalizer because like it's implied action. I get to see
Yeah,
the after effects, but I don't get the
exactly.
actual
Yeah, I
action.
agree with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I want to read Master Leaf's comics because they kind of
Mm-hmm.
intertwine with what we've been talking about. Do you think this adaptation of Craven will be better or worse than the Craven movie? And
Are we even entertaining this?
I mean, I like to show love to the people that write in, and I will say,
I know. This is just so funny. This Master Relief is like, do you have any hope with how Sony has been handling the non-MCU recent Spider-Man content outside Spider-Verse? That what the movie with Aaron Taylor Johnson will do will be better than what this game does.
no
Oh
chance
man,
in hell it'll be better than this adaptation of Craven. No
yeah,
chance.
yeah, it's so funny. But we love you, Master Relief.
Yeah,
We love it. Yeah.
there's no chance, Master Leaf, that this is going to be a worse version of Craven than that movie. That movie's probably gonna be awful.
Oh yeah,
Awful.
if Morbius was any indication, the only thing that movie has going for it is like, it's interesting that they went full hard R, so it's gonna be violent. So it's like that's gonna be unique. But other than that, like I have no hope. I just have no hope in the expanded non-Spider-Man universe that Sony's got going. That right. They only have that because they want to keep the Spider-Man license within them. So.
All right, you're an expert on this one. James B. wrote in and says, "Does anyone else feel like the third act was just Web of Shadows?"
Yes, it was. It's just that it was also like when you think about Web of Shadows, one thing that was really cool about that game was that in that game there were other heroes operating. You got Wolverine, you got Moon Knight, you got Luke Cage. There was like more. Shield got involved. So there was like something really cool about like such a cataclysmic event happening in New York that brought so many heroes together, even though you're still seeing it from the eyes of Spider-Man. I feel like from the scale of things, we got the idea of like Venom just really covering everything and symbiotes running around. I just say that I feel like it is time for the Insomniac Spider-Man games to start including so many heroes that are clearly being referenced, because it's like, to me, it starts boggling the mind of knowing that heroes are operating, that you think that you're getting the equivalent of 3 9/11s happening in New York right now, with this thing, and it's just Spider-Man and Miles like dealing with it. It feels very insular in a way that at least Web of Shadows gave me that, but this game is so much better. So it's like, at least I got the idea of Web of Shadows like being represented in full high fidelity with great acting and all that. But I'm not gonna lie that I do wish that this would have served as a good catalyst to bring in more people that are clearly in this universe.
Yeah, for it should be like all hands on deck kind of a like atmosphere, but like we don't get to see it because it's an insulated Spider-Man story. But like
exactly, yeah. And the thing that makes Spider-Man stories, like, usually it's like, it's rare for a city to like for Spider-Man stories to just go this wide in Cataclysm. Like, I kind of got it with the like, here's the thing that I did appreciate it, like in hindsight, like when Devil's Breath happened in 2018, they quarantined the city. Yeah. You knew the West Coast Avengers. You had established that they were over at the Avengers that had their base there. Like, they were dealing with things in the West Coast, which was kind of like a wink, nod to what the Square Enix game eventually was doing in a way. Yeah. Even though the universe was not connected, it was like a missed opportunity, FYI.
Well, I mean, we saw how that turned out. So
exactly, no, and that hurt that game even more, being so separate. So maybe that would have helped, and they would have helped not pursue the game that they pursued. But yeah, it's like definitely errors of Web of Shadows. Definitely like Web of Shadows stayed in this crisis mode way longer than this game. A lot of this was like when Venom comes in, it's like it takes halfway through the third act for the symbiote to completely take over the city. So this is something that, yes, like they knew what they were getting inspirations from. This game is much better than that one, though. I do miss how like half of that game really was about that crisis and how much it dealt with the different heroes coming together and the wild scenarios that were happening, like Wolverine Venom. I mean, like if you do the Wolverine and half of your like, it's Web of Shadows is wild. It's just absolutely wild.
So, it really is. It's a marvel that game exists.
Yeah. Oh yes, and it's emblematic of like the wild pre-Disney era of Marvel. So
it really is. So I'm let's go to our next question here. We got one more. We got Rock
Two
Lee.
more, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Rock Lee. I had performance issues like crazy, but still enjoyed the game. Am I the only one? Do you think that this is the best PS5 exclusive so far? So 2 questions there, right?
Yes. Yeah. And yes. And I would say this, like, performance-wise, I thought this was pretty flawless. Like, when I think of performance issues, I think frame rates dropping and all that. I played the majority of this game in the performance mode, 60 frames and all that. Rarely did I see any problems there. My issues were bugs, not performance.
I think he means it in the like from the main audience perspective. They might not. He might have meant it from like that other side of things, and not necessarily the technical nuances of performance versus.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, to me, it's like to me, I said it. This was a buggy game for me.
Yeah.
But like but that was like from different glitches. I feel from performance, this is one of the best performing games on the system. Like when you see the level of fidelity and quality of what it's going, and the fact that it's like it runs as smoothly as it does in the performance mode, and even also the fidelity mode, if you want to get even extra resolution from that. I feel like in performance, like this was pristine. It was just in those bugs. Luckily, if what you meant is also bugs, yeah, you have someone in me as kind of like the surrogate, a comrade on the bugs, because I tell you, those pictures are just so funny. The 2 cars stuck together. It's just an image that's just never gonna leave me.
Yeah, I'm just gonna interpret it as he probably meant bugs as opposed to like actual performance.
Yeah. And I came out enjoying the game also. Like, I still enjoyed it despite those bugs, which again is like the underlying game is so strong. It's disappointing those bugs were there, like that they happen now, when that usually doesn't happen for me. Is it the best PS5 exclusive so far?
I mean, we ain't got too many of them, so I'm like...
Yes, and that's what's so funny, because it's like when it comes to PS5 only games, there's Demon's Souls, Returnal, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and this.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yes, yeah, because it's like God of War Ragnarok is also on PS4, Horizon Forbidden West is also on PS4. You can be technical.
Even if you want to call those PS5 exclusives,
yeah.
Like even if we said that's a part of the PS5 generation of exclusive games.
I personally think personally, Sebastion, even with my issues, I think I enjoyed Spider-Man 2 more than I did God of War Ragnarok. Like when I think that, and also Horizon Forbidden West. It's a game that when I think about it, I would want to, like, I've been hankering to replay this game. I'm holding back because I know there's a New Game Plus that Brian and the team, you better listen to me. Like, you better drop that goddamn mode soon. I want to replay your game now. I want to strike while the iron's hot. I don't want to cool off too much.
Yeah, so, I know for them, they probably like want to ramp up a bit as opposed to like Linux. Like,
also, just to kind of add some slight nuance to like the PS5 exclusive thing, there was another PS5 only game that came out this year that was Final Fantasy 16. That is still my favorite game this year, even after Spider-Man 2. So I think, to me personally, like from Sony first party, I think Spider-Man 2 is the best one. As from an experience that I experienced on that's PS5 only, made for PS5, that has been my favorite. I think I would go Final Fantasy for me. So,
okay,
this would be like a close second if we're including non-first party stuff. If it's just first party, it's Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I love this game. Yeah, even with my issues with it.
Yeah, I have it blocked out on my calendar right now. I'm gonna finish Final Fantasy 16. I have it. Yeah. I've officially blocked it out.
Exactly, yeah, it's because I just know that you still haven't seen some of the incredible moments from that game. Like, you're still like, even if you've experienced some incredible moments already, believe me when I tell you, you have not seen anything yet.
All right. So John Stevenson, let's see. I asked this last time, but I'm curious for Spider-Man 2. What are the best set piece moments in the game for you?
Oof, okay. There's many in this one because I have to parse out. Second half of Lizard is high up there for sure. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if we're including this as a set piece, the entire introduction of Venom.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just like so unbelievably hype, so unbelievably high energy. Is just so chaotic and messy, and that I feel like
I wanna interrupt here for a second. I'm not gonna call this like I know this isn't technically a set piece or anything like that, but this gives me a chance to shout it out.
Go for it.
The Howard side quest.
We haven't talked about the damn side quest. Holy crap! Yeah, it's like the Howard side quest is probably the most one of the any game this year. Shockingly hit me in the gut, like punched me in the gut.
Oh my goodness, like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, because it's a moment to where like I sent the message to you. I'm
Yeah,
like,
you
I
just
hate it.
teared up. Yeah. You hated bird chasing in the first game. How they
Hated it.
turned that around to deliver because I think you remind me if I'm wrong, because I just made like 20 Miles Morales recently when we did our chat.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a side quest that dealt with Howard also in Miles Morales? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying
I
to
don't
remember
remember
because
one. I don't
yeah,
remember it.
because I do remember obviously the Howard side quest in the first game. It's just
Mhm.
that them building from one of the least popular ones to then deliver that emotional punch,
So
and
good.
that not only that, the grandpa um
That's
side
well,
quest. I
yeah, the
feel those two,
Alzheimer's.
those two side quests like exemplifies the power of Spider-Man as a hero of the people in a very intimate moment, in its
Oh,
intimacy. Those like side quests hit me harder than most main beats of the main story, and it feels like that was just a good example of how side quest has been like the one thing that they got criticized heavily in 2018. We saw improvements in Miles Morales, and in Spider-Man 2, side
so good.
quests got better, side activities remain static. And there's a
I'm.
difference between side activities and side quests. So
Mhm.
at least side quests have been improved. Side activities feel very by the numbers, and also like the breadth of side activities in Spider-Man 2 actually got lessened in this game compared to the other Spider-Man. Is in a way that it feels like when outside of main story and side quests, like you can be done with anything you have to do with the city pretty quickly,
Oh yeah.
compared to like the other game. I feel like you had more to do outside just the main stuff. So they cut back on that. That's why they platinum comes so quickly in this game compared to the other one. So
I know I'm probably in the minority here, but I sort of like the shorter runtime. And sort of like, so I didn't need this to be like Assassin's Creed Odyssey or
oh
Assassin's
yeah,
Creed Valhalla, if
no,
I'm being
no,
honest.
no, 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 no. And here's the thing. I want to replay this game again, even after platinuming it. Usually, when I platinum a game, it reaches a point where I'm sick of the game and I don't want anything to do with that. That's what
Yeah.
happened to me with Spider-Man 2018 when I first platinumed it the first time, and that kind of also diminished my opinion of the game because by the time when you're sick of something, when you 100% it, that is like that can change your experience. Even after platinuming this game, I'm thinking of like I want to do that again.
No.
Even with my issues, I'm like I rather that than feeling like I'm done with a game. I don't want to do this again. So
Especially if they polish it up to where you're not experiencing that bugs too.
I can imagine, and because that's the thing, like I wanted again, like I can't wait for that. Because I'm still trying to solidify like what my top 10 for the year is, and because of the bug experiences and all that, I just felt like I had better experiences for this year. But I really want to do another run because there's so much from this game that I really love. That it's just unfortunate that those bugs really like reared their ugly head when they shouldn't have for me. Like for a game where the previous we just recently replayed them, that didn't even happen.
Yeah,
So
I can
so
see
yeah,
that.
so yeah, I can't wait. Please give me that New Game Plus soon, Insomniac. While I'm still like, I am so hungry. I had to pull up the older games to kind of satiate my hunger because I don't want to like play through that one again. Yet knowing that I would love to see what it feels like to play through the early parts of Spider-Man 2 of this Spider-Man 2 with the full upgrades.
You
Then that
know,
would feel so nice.
another thing I think I know a lot of people want New Game Plus, but I almost wish that, and this was a fault that I kind of had with the other ones. I almost wish they had like level selectors in this to where you could just replay a boss fight too,
Yeah.
or like replay a level.
I feel it more because everything that I love about this game halfway through. So then it means that when I replay the game, I will have to trudge to the parts that I really love. Whereas I feel like parts that I loved in 2018, there were some that came in pretty early that made me more excited about the idea of like replaying it. In this one, like I love Sandman. I absolutely love Sandman. Then it takes a while to get to the next part that I truly love. Before a middle spot that I was like, yeah, I like this, but it's
Oh
like
man,
I definitely love.
I think I would like if I was to skip ahead immediately to anything. Like I still think I'd still chill in that first half, and I think I'd like play that first Mary Jane mission where you're like
Mhm.
where you're in the zoo.
And
Oh,
that's what I say. It's like that's the point where I love the game. It's like it's until you reach that MJ section that leads to you getting the black suit. That's the moment where my love for the game starts. Like I go from like to love. It's so funny. That is my spot. I want to like trash all the way till then.
I was just like, I also like the build up with like Rio and Miles and Genki, as far as like seeing where their life is at now, and seeing like that she started dating again. That like
Yeah.
I man, it feels so intimate. I feel like I know
It's,
these characters, you know.
and that's the thing that why this interpretation of Spider-Man is my favorite from any medium.
Oh wow,
I know this
any medium.
Yeah, I like this. I like these games more than the movies. I like this games more than most comic books. I like this game more than the TV than the TV animated stuff or TV movies and all that. This is like This is the Spider-Man like side of things, especially me in my favorite medium that is gaming.
Yeah.
And them doing story is good. This is why this is my favorite interpretation. Even as so many parts of this game was very derivative from other versions of stories that I've seen. But it's still like, because it's in this version that I really got to connect so well with, that this is still like, I love it. Those tiny little in other stories, maybe only the Spider-Verse movie is like as close as I would get. Like, yeah, I want to hear what Rio and Jefferson Davis are doing this time. But I feel like in this one, I really love getting to like reconnect with some of these characters. Like this, even people can criticize, oh yeah, they're reusing New York and all that. Guess what, people? New York is a real city. It will not change. It's still the same city as if you go in real life. It's like, that is not a problem for me in this game. I'd rather like the changes happen within how you experience the stories within the same city. So
Yeah,
especially because it's real life, and that familiarity makes me connect more with more of these characters, because it's like jumping back into a new season of TV with your favorite stuff. That's how it feels. So.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I know we have hit a long point. Please bear with us because we got two last segments of the show. The first one is we're gonna rank these villains, these Spider-Man villains.
Yeah.
So, right here, I'm compiling up a list of these villains. Alejandro, throw me some villains that you feel like I missed. We have Wraith. I feel like, because we have a boss fight against her.
Yeah, you have her, but yes, it's halfway through that side quest.
Yeah. So we have Wraith, we have Cletus Cassidy, we have Venom, we have Lizard,
I'm trying to remember. Did we fight Cletus Cassidy? I don't remember if we fought him.
We don't necessarily fight him, but like
he was just there, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, in that same way, because I mean, we had Norman Osborn at our
and you didn't fight him, so yeah. From that perspective, I can see kind of like as a non-fightable boss fight, how we like justified including Dr. Norman Osborn. Yeah. Yes, we can include him. So yeah, Wraith, Cletus Cassidy,
Venom. We have Lizard. We have Mysterio.
Peter. Yeah, Mysterio.
Oh, you're gonna call Peter? Oh, okay. So here,
I mean, you do fight him.
Yeah. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna call Peter Venom.
Yeah, Peter Venom. Yes, or Black Suit Peter, or Black Suit Peter. Yeah.
Black Suit Peter. Yeah. Then we got regular Venom, and let's see. Are we missing a side villain there?
I don't think you are. So
we got Wraith, Cletus Cassidy,
Venom, Lizard, Mysterio, Peter Venom, Sandman. Yeah.
Yeah, Enter the Sandman.
Not quite a boss fight, but I do love the January 6th guy.
Which one?
The January 6th guy.
Oh yeah. That's pretty funny.
the one that makes the honey joke.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, because it feels like there were more boss fights, but I'm trying to remember.
I think it was because there were like also like what was it?
Scream. We gotta include Scream. Yeah. You gotta include Scream. Yeah.
Scream. All right. And this is a little nebulous here. Like, do we also include like the black cat? Like,
but she wasn't a boss. She was just like an element from a level that.
It was like a level.
Oh, Mr. Negative has to be included because you do fight him. So.
Yeah. Mr. Negative. Do we? All right. So, let's see. Here we go.
Put another one. Let me see. Grizzly. Yeah. They don't have any honey guys. Yeah. I'll take it.
So I mean, he was like a mini boss fight almost.
Yes, he was, and then eventually, like, you just start fighting them just as normal enemies afterwards. But that was a funny moment because it was like a definitive, like, they made a point of like highlighting it, so I want included for the lulz.
Yeah, so. And then I can't think of any other ones that we got here because I mean, technically, I mean, we did have to go through like stuff for Chameleon. Do we count him as a?
If you want to include him in kind of like the villains that you don't fight, but it was interesting to find stuff. Yeah, encounter him. You can include him.
All right. In 5 years, we'll count him as a regular like fighting villain. Maybe he'll move up the list. But I can't. We didn't fight Scorpion here.
No, he was just he only poisons you while you're at the while you're at the raft when they're escaping, but you don't fight him. So
yeah. So there we go. I think that's it.
Yeah, that sounds right. So
yeah,
if we miss someone, let us know over in Discord or
for sure.
or in the comments. Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, everyone, here's what we got so far. We have Wraith, Cletus Cassidy, aka the Flame, Venom, and by Venom we'll just say what's his
Harry.
name? Harry Venom. All right. And we got Venom Harry, then we got Lizard, we got Mysterio, Peter Venom, we got Sandman, Scream, Mr. Negative, Grizzly, aka I Don't Have Any Honey, and Chameleon.
I would say the majority of these boss fights trouns a lot of the boss fights from both 2018 and Miles Morales. I would still say that the Dr. Octopus final battle is like the most emotional of the 3 games. Kind of like what that meant for like that story and how like that entire story kind of came together like in that crescendo.
Well, let's paint a picture for the audience here.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now we have these following as our official rankings right now.
Yes. 14 villains, including from both 2018 Miles Morales and also the did we include the DLC? Yeah, did we put the DLC there? Like, did we include them there? I'm trying to remember.
No, not the DLC.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't include the DLC villains there.
No. So, but that's okay. I mean, do we really need to put Hammerhead, Screwball in there? I'm like,
no, they would be bottom tier.
They would be all bottom tier. I'm like, all of them. I'm like, we can put them there for shits and giggles if you want. But
yeah, they can. All four of them could be above the Shocker, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the Shocker is still dead last.
Oh, you put Shocker last? Oh man, I hate.
Oh no! Oh well. Then it could be like Screwball 18 and then Shocker 17 and then the rest at the top.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I was like, I hated the Screwball part. All right, so here we go. We got
18 villains, right?
We got 18. We got Dr. Octopus number 1, number 2, the Prowler, number 3, Mr. Negative, number 4, Kingpin, number 5, Tinkerer, aka Finn, number 5, Red Rhino from Miles Morales. We got number 7, Tombstone, number 8, Norman Osborn, number 9, Taskmaster, number 10, Scorpion, number 11, Electro, number 12, Rhino, number 13, Vulture. We got number 14, 15, 16, 17, Hammerhead, Black Cat, Shocker, Silver Sable, and Shocker, and then Screwball in the dead ass last. Now we got a lot of Spider-Man villains here. We got to put into these rankings. Do you have any strong opinions so far?
Yeah, because we have 11 of them. So I would say Mr. Grizzly and Cletus Cassidy would be kind of like on the bottom tier, just specifically one of them is and also Chameleon, in that we don't really fight them, but there's some interesting story implications there. So for example, like when I look at the list, all
right, Mr. Grizzly, above the Shocker or below the Shocker for you?
Oh, Mr. Grizzly is below the Shocker because it's like it's for the shits and giggles, but to me it's just funny, but it's just immediate.
Okay.
Yes. Then we got Chameleon. I would say that in concept, I would put
story though.
Yeah, I like that story. I would say he would go beneath the Taskmaster, above Scorpion.
I'm right there with that because I was gonna say below Scorpion, above Electro, so I'm right there with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I can dig that.
So the chameleon goes there because obviously like the Sinister Six are just so thrown in, and the implications of chameleon like's connection to Craven, and they're very cool. Like, yeah, this is gonna be a villain for the next game, and if it'll depend, like that one, it will depend on how they do that. He could go up or down, or whenever we rank eventual Spider-Man 3, how they how they do that villain. But I would say, at least conceptually, I like the chameleon more than almost everything that was beneath it. So that's why, yeah, I would put chameleon above Scorpion, beneath Taskmaster, because Taskmaster at least has the those challenges. Now, because speaking of challenges, Mysterio. I would say
yeah.
So
Mysterio's boss fight was really cool though.
Yeah, the Mysterio boss fight is cool. The challenges that Taskmaster put you through were like more fun, but based on the payoff, I would put Mysterio above Taskmaster.
Okay, so so Norman Osborn's number 8 right now. Number 9 is Taskmaster. You think you'd sandwich those in, and then the new number 9 would become the Taskmaster.
Exactly.
Or Mysterio.
Yeah, Mysterio.
I'm fine with that. I ain't got no dog in that fight. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Especially because it's like, I'm trying to remember because I didn't do the challenges in our replay. Like, did we fight Taskmaster?
We do fight Taskmaster after it's all said and done. It's like a mini. It's like a mini fight sort of.
It's situation. Like a mini fight. Compare the mini fight, that mini fight, to the Mysterio fight in the bowl.
Yeah.
I think it's much cooler. Yeah, it's much cooler. So that's why I put Mysterio, because they're both like they're the challenge villains.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see that. Let's see. I would probably say let's do Lizard next, because I think that's interesting.
Lizard, I would say, like, in terms of spectacle, they do a lot with Lizard. Like the set piece, like 2 large set piece moments are like part of his whole spiel. I
don't think you'll like it though.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
I think this is okay. So we have, as currently standing, I think we have Kingpin 4, we have Tinkerer 5, we have Red Rhino 6, and 7 Tombstone. I'd put the Lizard at the new 6, above Red Rhino, but below Tinkerer.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree with that, because I like I totally like his boss fight and what he means to the game way more than Tombstone. And I feel he also has that Red Rhino kind of like feel of like kind of that tier villain that also like puts you through great spectacle, because I feel it's like it takes like what we got from Red Rhino, multifaceted in the game, and it blows it up more. Because you do more. Yeah, you see, like in that, like the Lizard fight is a showcase of them doing set pieces at a citywide level twice, early on in the river, and then the persecution, and it's a really interesting one-on-one boss fight. Also, as you're with the black suit.
Yeah, you're not lying.
So I would put Lizard up there. So.
All right. You want to do Sandman next?
Yes, and that one I would say Sandman goes above the Kingpin. For me. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sandman.
Because I think of it as the introduction of the game, and I just love the spectacle of that Sandman battle. It's such a strong start for me.
You know, you won me over. I love that fight, so I'm not really tripping over it. I don't necessarily, and I also like the little, like we mentioned it earlier, but I also do like his little side quests as well.
Yeah.
Where you try to find
and you find and then you figure out like that you piece it all together at the end. You go into like his mind space. So,
and basically, I'm like, hold on, like the little piece that he left his daughter, the crystallized. Did Sandman die?
No, he's still in the
prison.
He's still at the prison. He's just like he gathered all his marvels. He stops going crazy because the different pieces had him like losing his mind, and us breaking all those things kind of like fix his mind or something. So.
But how does he leave that? How does that piece of him stay out if he needed that piece? How does the daughter have it? Is my question.
You got me there. Trying to remember now. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now the implications now.
That's why I was just like, how does the daughter have a piece of him if he needed all those pieces to be fully functional? You know?
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember something, or maybe it was like how it was fractured. I will have to replay it, but it's like I would say like I remember there was like the final beat of that we give the daughter something that the wife kind of like just picks from the loft.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to remember like because I just remember when you finish and get all of those crystals, like he like gets his sanity back. That's all I know because he's still on the raft. So.
Okay. All right.
And I know, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was like he became that big Sandman because Craven did something to him. I do remember that. Like
Craven
he was one of
hunting him down, and,
yeah,
and say he was gonna attack his daughter. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that kind of like made him go crazy and go all that big at how we saw him. So.
All right, let's do Scream next. Where do you put her?
Crap. Oh man, because now we get into like real emotional things. It's like I feel like Scream isn't that isn't that Prowler era. Like there's a like think about like the emotions of seeing MJ like be transformed into that, like the things that Scream was like emerging from her inner struggles and like what that means to Peter and her relationship. Like it's such a dark point in the story that I feel at least right now I would put it above the Prowler. Because the Prowler, why we put it up there was because that was such a like the emotions of having to fight your family member in Miles Morales.
But it was also like a cool set piece moment. Like they did some really cool things with like that. I think it was that train tracks moment, like that train like station underneath. Like
yeah, that's where you fought with them, and then it was like, but it was inserted to that train place, and then he would become like invisible, and you had to try to find him within that small contained thing. I feel the emotions that were elicited in Scream were like even more vital, especially because it's from characters that you got to learn more of now for 2 games and seeing that happen.
Do you like the Scream fight more than the Mr. Negative like train and like all the fights for Mr. Negative in the first one?
Okay. Oh yes, I like that. It's just that I think I like it more than Prowler's fight.
Oh also, wow!
So yeah, that's one.
I'm still on Prowler higher, but I'm not. I'm like I can go either way though.
Yeah. Let's see how the rest of the list shakes out, because I feel like right now we have left up people like some boss fights that are gonna be up here. So.
All right. So let's go really quick right there,
yeah.
And then let's and then we can kind of see how everything shakes out, like you said. Wraith. Wraith.
The Wraith, yeah, Wraith I would definitely go lower. I would say I would put Wraith beneath Red Rhino personally.
Okay. I think it was a cool fight. I don't know how Wraith got all these like combat abilities all of a sudden though.
Yeah, suddenly like in between the second DLC from City That Never Sleeps to this one, apparently she really hustled.
I almost would rather put her below Tombstone, because I kind of like the Tombstone fight.
I would be okay with putting her beneath Tombstone if you want. Like,
I'm not really tripping, but I'm like, I don't really care either way. On that part.
Because think about it this way, like Tombstone was so important in the first Spider-Man game because it was like the only legit side quest of that game, whereas like Wraith was just one of the many side quests in this. So,
all right, so let's go with Peter Venom. Peter Venom.
I would put it beneath Scream.
Whoa.
Because it's like because both of them hit that kind of like emotion / story turning point at that point. So and also kind of the Peter Venom was just their version of getting the symbiote off of Peter through Miles, whereas the Scream fight is a complete surprise. You're not expecting like you're gonna be fighting Mary Jane. So that's like there was like a shock to the system was getting to see that, and how much like emotionally it was like being thrown at you, like what Scream was unleashing from her. So that's why I put Scream above the Peter Venom fight.
All right, so
Craven,
Mr. Negative, Mr. Negative from Marvel's Spider-Man 2.
I would say I would put him beneath the Mr. Negative from Spider-Man 1.
Oh, so when you think the Miles fighting Mr. Negative on this one's a better fight than the Sandman?
It's no. It would be like, but it would be Mr. Negative Spider-Man 1 at the top, and actually, yeah. Now that I think about that,
that's why I was thinking about it, because I'm like,
I think Mr. Negative from Spider-Man 2 goes beneath the Sandman. I like the Sandman fight way more.
Okay, so you think it's a better fight than Kingpin and Tinkerer and Lizard?
What are you thinking? I want to hear if you have a suggestion.
I
don't want to take on a list.
No, I don't really. This is not where I'm like 10 toes down. This is the stand I'm taking, but like At first glance, I would probably put, because I do like the emotional moments of this fight,
Uh,
but like I don't. It feels like he's almost like neutered a bit as opposed to like the Mr. Negative.
Mr. Negative boss fight in the first game definitely way more important than how he is, and so I would say definitely like where you're suggesting beneath the lizard. I think I would take that.
That's what I was thinking, because I'm like, I think the Lizard's a better boss fight too.
Yeah, yeah. And also because remember, it's like the Mr. Negative thing starts as a boss fight and then he becomes your friend, and he hates you afterwards. So,
and it's also not like it's not the moment that Miles forgives him. It's just the moment that Miles didn't want to take his life.
Yeah.
So I feel
in the arena where when Craven is like
kill each other to face me. So that's why I was just like, it feels like that was a moment where Miles was just like, I'm not a Spider-Man who's gonna take a life, but I haven't moved past that, but I need help as well. So I'm like, but we see that more impactful moment later on when Miles forgives Mr. Negative when they're in Peter's headspace. Yeah. Well, not forgives, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and that's why Martin Lee as a boss fight is more important in the first game and higher in our list than he is in this one. But also because way more boss fights that happen in this game, and kind of like his role changes. So enough, and no fault of his own is like as villain, like in the villain side, is like I feel the other villains are definitely more important. So
all right, Craven in this game.
I'm gonna come in with the hot take and say that he is beneath Mr. Negative from Spider-Man 2.
Oh, I don't hate that because I actually liked the boss fight with him versus Venom.
Yeah, and that's why that one is like when I think of the Peter versus Craven fight, I thought it was okay. It's because the cool moment of that fight is what comes after, which is Peter Venom versus Miles, which was more power, had more of a punch in that sequence. But definitely, he's definitely rescued for me with the Venom fight in Times Square.
Venom Harry.
Yeah, Venom Harry.
Venom
Harry, I would say he is beneath Dr. Octopus.
Okay, so wait, well, hold on. Like, okay, so we have Dr. Octopus, Prowler, Scream, and then you want to put him. You want to put Doc Ock first, Venom Harry second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because here's how I see it: is like Insomniac try to like hit twice the same, like kind of like that final boss fight that tries to punctuate the story and all of that. Nothing beats the first time. You see that, and I feel Dr. Octopus as a villain is like usually is better than Venom. Even as much as I love how I feel more connected to this Venom because of the Harry connection, but you knew. I mean, the new moment from the first game, like emotional, like in that final boss fight, the switch back to like the both like you losing your web shooters and fighting Octopus like to the side of the building. That are you gonna forgive him or not? Or walking away from the villain and all of that is like I feel that there's just something in those in the emotions of the Dr. Octopus fight that the Venom fight is way more epic, especially when obviously you switch characters. If you just start fighting him as Peter, then like it switches to Miles, and then through quick time events, both of them kind of get the final punches together. So, would you make the argument it could be a number one because of the spectacle? It's kind of hard because I feel like the Dr. Octopus and Venom one are kind of like intertwined up there. So,
I would have personally put this at the new number 4.
So beneath Prowler.
No, wait, hold on. Like Dr. Octopus, I would have the Dr. Octopus, Scream. Okay, number 3. My bad. Dr. Octopus, Scream, Venom, Prowler, Peter Venom.
So you would put the Scream battle above the Venom fight.
Not necessarily above the Venom fight, but I think the impactfulness, because I didn't feel the highs of like Peter and Harry, because like you said, it's like I've been there before,
I can see that. It's like a spectacle carries a lot of that boss, but because Scream was such a surprise, I would be willing to do that trade-off and switch. Venom Harry goes 3, Scream goes above it.
Because I was just like, like you said, I was like, oh man, I didn't see that coming, and I also was like,
the emotions being thrown at you.
Oh yeah, so I'm like, oh my goodness. But I do think, like you said, like the spectacle of like him raising their old high school and you fighting in the whole high school, and then you also fighting Wing Venom later on. I think that's cool, but I'm like, and the stakes feel high, but it also feels like emotionally I've felt that before.
Yeah. well, at the peaks of you fighting MJ, which you don't know how that fight is gonna go with Scream, how that happened, and just how that masterful entire sequence of you going back to your house and seeing them sit together, and then how like that escalate, that entire sequence between the three escalate to him like putting the symbiote into MJ. So
I had a friend of mine who was playing this around the same time I was. He hit me up and he was just like, at that Scream part, he was just like, what would it be like if Peter accidentally killed MJ here? Like,
there were it's like that was a real present danger, because he was already hit with that. I don't know if it was then or this happened later, when it was like the only way for Harry to be free of Venom is to kill. So I don't know. I'm trying to remember if that was still later or before. I think that was still later, right? Yeah. So I don't know, kind of like when you really think about it, kind of like that could have also been her, like that symbiote fully embracing her. Imagine it had to be faced the only way for her is to kill her. That would have been like intense. So.
I think that would have raised the stakes astronomically, though, because I'm like, to have it to where you end up with MJ dying and then Harry miraculously living through that.
Yeah.
I think those stakes would have been stupidly high at that point.
And also too dark for Spider-Man. So
yeah, it's very dark, like very dark.
Yeah.
But I mean, you killed off Aunt May.
Yeah. But that's the thing, like, to this game's benefit, I'm glad that Harry didn't die. Because it's like, that would have been, especially because Miles loses Finn in the other games. So it would be like, you killing the final villain at the end, it was like, it would become too repetitive. So, yeah, so, in a way, I like the beat that he survives, even though early. But also, the emotional punch of what happens after Dr. Octopus is like, it's just not there in this game. But also because they already played that card. Even if they had killed Harry, if they had killed it, I would have just rolled my eyes, because like, yep, and that's how a Harry Osborn story goes. So.
Yeah. All right, everyone. That is the new rankings, the SPE rankings for our Spider-Man.
30 villains.
30 villains. Because when you actually think about it, 30 villains is a lot for
it. Yes, and now I understand why some people are like, did he even have people left for 3? But I want to see Brandon Tahart and the team surprise me, because there's such a huge stable of villains that sometimes we're not even thinking about them. So.
Oh man, I've already capped, like, when we read that question earlier again, like I typed in my phone earlier, like when I was playing Spider-Man, like Spider-Man villains that I would love to see in Spider-Man 3 and that haven't been in Spider-Man before. And I'm like, I got a solid list, a list that you probably would be like, I don't necessarily know if I want to play against those characters, but
but it's like that there is a stable there. There is. It's like Spider-Man has been in existence since the 1960s. Of course, there's gonna still be like something there. The well is still like full to pull some.
For sure. Because I was just like, we've seen some of them and we've got to play against a lot of them, but I'm like, we haven't gotten to like Mulan, like Morlun.
Morlun, yeah. The one, he's the one that killed him, right?
Yeah, and also if they ever do like a mini like Spider-Verse like mini game, I'm like, he'd probably be the bad guy.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, you would have that. If they're doing a mouse
and also again, because also like I only know Prowler as like a big Miles villain, of course, with his connection to his. Like, do you know of any Miles specific villains from his Ultimate run that we haven't seen yet? Because I feel like he's due for his own rogues gallery.
Well, I mean, like they could do Spot. I mean, but because
the Spot, it would be like them riffing on Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, so I'm like, if they really wanted to do that, but I'm like, but then Crossbones is another villain from Miles. That's pretty. So
Crossbones is for him, because I usually associate Crossbones with in recent times with Captain America.
And you would be right to do that, but I'm like, Crossbones has been a pretty dominant villain. Sturm is or Madam Swarm, and it's like this is kind of like a character that was a Nazi agent that who worked for Hitler, but has like she's like a living beehive.
Interesting.
I'm like, that could be a cool like take on it. Like let's see. I'm trying to think of another one that I would definitely say would be a really cool
So to not be too late, so not to make it too long. So Miles does have his own rogues gallery that they could pull from,
Yeah,
in
because
like
he has
if necessary.
yeah, because he has the assessor, another villain. He has Ramble, which is Raheen Rashad, which is another classmate of his, almost like his version of Harry, almost kind of, or his version of Harry meets dang, the bully, Spider-Man's bully,
Flash.
almost like that, kind of, almost like that. Then you have like he has his own version of Carnage, and then Ultimatum is like one of his big villains as well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he's got a pretty solid rogue gallery.
And I think to my advantage in a way, because I don't know much of Miles's rogues gallery from the comics. I'm not as well versed. I feel like the surprise factor of including a bunch of them in any future game would like really elevate that in a way.
I can see that.
Because like that's what made Mr. Negative so special in the 2018 game. It's like he's not a villain that has been used outside like his introduction in the Brand New Day comic. So it's like for many people he was like a new villain, even though he was technically not. But it was like a new creation by Dan Slott when he took over that book. So that helped a lot with intrigue. Whereas me doing Kraven with this year's like I know who Kraven is, and with no real nuances. That's why like I didn't connect quite as much to Kraven as I did Mr. Negative, like in comparison. Even though like what Kraven does gameplay wise is like at least that pulled off its weight. So
what did they also say like did Anna die in this? Because I know like a lot of the Kravenoff children died, but I don't think Anna did, right? Anna was the daughter that survived.
I kind of like from what I read, I thought because when you're doing all the vases that ends with like the voice recordings, it's like my implication is that every voice recording we heard is of every member of the family that died on his end. So
I was about to say I don't remember if I thought maybe one survived, but it could be that all of them died. But because I was like Anna Kravenoff is another Miles Morales villain.
Interesting. Maybe they could like twist it to be like she barely survived, like because again that's off screen, so they can retcon their way around that. So
I mean, Joystick is another Miles Morales villain that's like very Baron Zemo-esque. And Black Tarantula is like a crime lord, but he's like a Hispanic crime lord. Yeah. And I'm like,
that would be cool, especially with Miles's background.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, you're like underlining the fact that, because especially now them saying like, yeah, Miles is our new Spider-Man. He's the new Spider-Man going forward and all that. Is like, I don't 100% believe it, but it's like he has like enough enough villains in the tank there that on top of some of the things that they left that can be like Peter's side and all that, Spider-Man 3 is not gonna be wanting. Like it absolutely is not gonna be wanting for in the villain department. I am more curious to see like if the third game is actually that's it, or are we getting another Miles Morales inner game mini game?
I think we're gonna get a smaller installment in the middle of that, because I don't think they're gonna put out. I think Spider-Man 3 is at the end of this generation.
I would totally be fine with that. My thing is that here's where it gets interesting. Is like the team that made Miles Morales is making Wolverine, so it's like because the team that made this game is the same team that made Spider-Man 1. It's like they pulled that team together. That it didn't. It's like the development didn't stop at all for Spider-Man 2 at all. They just kind of added the extra workforce to add that interstitial game to its benefit. And now we got the things that, because Wolverine exists, I do wonder if they do that Wolverine game and then that's how they do the other interstitial game. But the things that I know Insomniac is also doing a multiplayer game from what I understand, because they were hiring. So it's like, who is like left to be able to do like another mini interstitial Spider-Man game?
The Ratchet and Clank team, right?
Yeah, but the Ratchet and Clank team is the one that is doing the multiplayer game now.
Okay, so I'm like, maybe they have a new studio, but like, because they do have, so they have the Spider-Man 2 studio, they have 3 mainline studios, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they had the Spider-Man 2 team, they had the Miles Morales team that became Wolverine, and they have the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart team that is moving to that other multiplayer game. which is
Yeah.
supposed to be an original stuff. So
If you're PlayStation, give them enough money to make another studio at this
they
point.
have proven, regardless of the bugs of this thing, is like they have put out 4 stuff already. They're about to put out a 5th one. We don't know when Wolverine is coming, but it would be insane if by next year we also got Wolverine, because the game already got announced like 2 years ago. So it's been in development. So
Alejandro, before we go though, I got 2 last questions for you. The first one is, where can the good people find you?
yes, I want to thank you so much for letting me be part of this episode, because I
Love it.
wanted to have more in-depth conversation about this game, because it allowed me to be more positive about the things that I loved that I couldn't in my own spoilercast. So you can find me over at the Xbox podcast that posts every Fridays from 2 p.m. onwards with my co-host Paul. And you can find me on Twitter at _Segovia, also known as X. You can find some of my posts over at Threads/Instagram at Alejandro Segovia 93, and then you can find my written content at both seasongaming.com and thecriticalcorner.com. Over at Critical Corner, like I mentioned at the top, you can read my thoughts on Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Marvel Spider-Man 2. And then recently at seasongaming.com, my current thoughts are the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 campaign, which will evolve into a full review later this week, and my Alan Wake 2 review. So
Man, that's exciting. That's exciting. Everyone, look forward to all that. Links to the description, as always. Everyone, thank you so much for being a part of this episode, being a part of this journey, and listening if you made it this far, because this has been a long, fun conversation. But no, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your continued support. The podcast continues to grow, and my heart and love for y'all just continues to grow alongside of it. Thank y'all so much for supporting me, and support the boys over there at the X Button Podcast. They are doing great work, and always love collabing with them. So before we go though, I told you I had 2 things. My last one is, Alejandro, what game are you going to be playing next?
Oof. So right now it's like I'm debating, because I'm just bouncing. I know that I had mentioned it before to my buddy Paul, that because Phantom Liberty came at the worst possible time.
I was going to ask you.
And I never fully finished the main campaign, so I have both as kind of like a full playthrough. I was thinking about it, start immediately jumping on that, but I wasn't in the mood. So I know that I'm eventually gonna get there, because I really want to give it its due now that the game is like as pristine as it is. But I'm just kind of like in the mood. Finishing Alan Wake 2 put me in a Remedy mood. So I was like, I'm going back through our Alan Wake Remastered. I'm gonna finish all this DLC and play American Nightmares. I'm gonna replay Quantum Break, because I only played that game once, and all of these games are like weirdly connected in interesting ways. Control, I want to play again, because I only played it once on PS4. I want to play the PS5 version and its DLC. And it's so funny, because all these games are literally a Remedy connected universe, and it all works together. It's kind of wild. It's like, it's what you want from, it's like an MCU that's not the MCU that's actually happening over at the Remedy connected universe, which is wild. Especially at a time where we see the MCU is like being a little desperate right now. Did you see the trailer from the Marvels yesterday? I was laughing hysterically that they had to like, what were the trailers before? It was like, oh yeah, this is like a fun movie about these 3 characters that have similar powers and similar motifs interchanging each other into like the next big like thing where everything's changing. Let's evoke Iron Man, Captain America, and Endgame, and Thanos. I was like, wow, that's like, if there were worries that the MCU was like, they're feeling scared right now over there, that trailer alone, I was like, yep. It's like when you're pulling that nostalgia card and like, oof, they got to do some soul searching of why they feel like they got to put those moves.
I know they said the Marvels weren't tracking very well in theaters, but I'm like, it was a very surprising move. Are you planning to watch it this week?
I don't know. Like, I'm not in. If some friends,
are you?
Yeah, I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood that I would go see it by myself if my friends don't want to go see it. If for some reason they told me let's go, I'll go, because one, the movie's short, so I'm like, I'll go see it. It's like, I mean, why not? I'm just not really in the mood. It's like, it's kind of like what I said in my Spider-Man review, that at a time where I've been like burned out on like many things Marvel, like Loki I still haven't seen. I know the season ends tomorrow. Like Secret Invasion, I tried with that first episode, and I was like, no, I'm bored, I'm not feeling this. And then hearing how bad it went is like, my love kind of like ended with Guardians 3, because that was like a goodbye. I felt that was like a goodbye, especially for James Gunn and all that. So that's why I'm like, yeah, it's like I want to hear to see if at least it's good, and if there's interest from friends to go see it, I'll go. It's like it's man, I haven't been to the movies in a while since Oppenheimer, so that's why I'm like, yeah, I'll go. So, but I'm not really interested. Yeah, I'm not hankering. So it's like it really just goes to show. But Spider-Man 2 was like, yeah, this is my lane. It's like if I have to like be excited for Marvel in one lane, I'm glad it's in games currently. So,
Yeah,
and how good this game was, even with my issues. Yeah.
I understand. I think I'm gonna go see it this weekend. We'll let you know what I think in our comments. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to our episode. I've been Sebastion. That's been Alejandro. This has been the Single Player Experience Podcast, the premier podcast for single player games for finding about good single player games to play. I'm about to go eat. Alejandro's about to go game. Thank you all for listening. In the meanwhile, stay safe, stay gaming, and enjoy that single player experience. Bye, everyone.
And press X to play.